Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel's Planeswalkers. Chapter 41. Li Feng understood what Mo Du was struggling with. It was nothing more than the collision of old and new ideas, which made Mo Du a little at a loss. In my impression, the evil, Stitch monster, knew that the devil's target was him, but still chose to rescue Leonor. It was just because his short legs couldn't outrun the flying Gideon. In the end, Leonor was used by Gideon to kill him. Kenstein's notebook was replaced. Now, in order to prevent Nobilis from obtaining the secret of the resurrected corpse, the righteous Stonewing Beast finally decided to kill Adam to prevent the devil from causing harm to the world. Who is right in this? Who is wrong? If it was before, Mo Du would have killed Adam without saying a word, but now. As for the change in Mo Du's inner world, Li Feng was speechless and helpless, but also a little relieved. He was pleased because Li Feng felt that he had completed the task that Ji Yuyi had not clearly explained. It could not be said that he had completely changed Mo Du's extreme thoughts, but it had already shaken Mo Du's heart. Speechless because what time it is now, the stone-winged beast is about to find the devil's lair and start killing people, but Mo Du is doubting his life at this time. Patting Mo Du on the shoulder, Li Feng smiled and said, "Since God allowed Adam to exist in his hometown, it means that he has other plans for Adam. How can he easily let the stone-winged beast kill him? If you haven't figured it out, maybe you should sort it out. Use magic weapons to enter the devil's lair and vent your confused emotions." Mo Du thought for a while, raised his head and said to Li Feng, "Maybe, but now I really want to kill some demons to calm down." After saying that, Mo Du stood up and walked out of the room, preparing some props to better hunt the devil. Li Feng lowered his head and glanced at the long knife at his waist. While putting the magic book in his pocket, he flipped the Key of Solomon, and muttered, "Maybe I should find some devil luoluo to practice my sword skills." On the other side, Adam, who left the monastery, felt something abnormal before returning to his dilapidated room. Until he saw that Wade was not in the room, Adam immediately realized that Wade was in danger, and hurriedly picked up Lan hidden in the corner. Kenstein's experimental notes, preparing to find Wade. In the distance, Gideon saw Adam putting Frankenstein's note into his arms and immediately launched a sneak attack. The battle between the two ended quickly. In the end, Adam sent Gideon back to heaven. At the same time, he also understood that the Stonewing Beast was preparing to hunt him in order to destroy Nobilis's plan to resurrect the corpse. The top priority was that Adam thought it was better to find Wade first. After all, Wade was the first partner he recognized, and he had to protect Wade's safety. Adam, who hurried to the devil's lair, easily found clues that Wade had been to the devil's lair. Adam understood that there were too many devils in the devil's lair. He was seeking death by breaking in alone and fighting alone. He needed allies. Originally, the enemy's enemy was the best ally, but now, the stone-winged beast is obviously on the enemy list, but Adam still has his mind set on the stone-winged beast. From the bottom of his heart, Adam still hopes that both of them will die together, so as to save two people. Fang Renma came to kill him when he had nothing to do. After burning Frankenstein's experimental notes, Adam deliberately let the Stonewing Beast discover his traces, preparing to lead the Stonewing Beast to the devil's lair. Li Feng, who was carrying a set of equipment like Mo Du and waiting for news in the hall, saw a Stonewing Beast hurriedly running into the hall and said to Leonor, "Queen, the monster has been found." Leonor glanced at the stone-winged beast in the hall, waved her hand, turned into the prototype of the stone-winged beast and said, "Let's go." Li Feng watched the stone-winged beasts flap their wings and fly high into the sky. He scratched his head and whispered to Mo Du next to him, "They can fly, what should we do?" "Open the portal." Mo Du turned around and asked curiously, "Do you know where the devil's lair is? Do you still remember that castle-like building we saw when we first came to this world?" Li Feng said with disdain, "Didn't you find that there are a lot of devils there? Where else could it be if it weren't the devil's lair? Could it be that the devils are hiding there? In the sewers. They are devils, not rats. This is what you told me back then, but now I have forgotten that not only your thoughts have changed, but your brain has also changed, right?" Mo Du smiled awkwardly. After Li Feng's explanation, he recalled what had happened. He stretched out his hand to open a portal, and while pulling out the magic weapon, he said to Li Feng, "Are you ready? It's time for the carnival." Li Feng drew out his long sword, shrugged and muttered, "I don't have the strength like you to hold a party." I'd better find some weaker devils to hone my sword skills. After saying that, Li Feng stepped through the portal and came to the roof opposite the devil's lair. Li Feng looked around, looked at Modu who was observing the devil's lair, and said, I thought you would open the portal directly to the entrance of the devil's lair. Modu rolled his eyes at Li Feng and said, he broke into the opponent's lair without knowing the number of demons. Do you think I am the Ancient One Master and can ignore the number? Just wait, we will join the battlefield when the stone-winged beasts come over. Quote. After a long time, Adam finally brought the stone-winged beast army to the devil's lair. Li Feng squatted on the edge of the roof, looked at Leonore opposite, and then at Adam, who was surrounded by a group of people in black suits. Li Feng expressed that he was puzzled. He saw that Leonore couldn't tell that these men in suits were devils. You said that the stone-winged beasts and devils have been dealing with each other for so many years. It's okay if they can't distinguish between humans and devils, but devils they all know how to use the power of science to strengthen themselves. Looking at you stone-winged beasts, candles are lit in the monastery and the weapons used are swords. Please, the humans around us have undergone tremendous changes over the centuries. Don't you have any idea of changing at all? It would be okay to at least install some electric lights in the monastery. Li Feng could only sigh. The stone-winged beast's brain is quite rigid. Will he die if he trains a few scientists? With the power of the stone-winged beast, one person would be able to hold a magically modified Gatling gun without gasping for air. Not to mention thousands of devils. I'm afraid even the word, devil, will be on the machine gun. Disappear from the human world under threat. While Li Feng was slandering the stone-winged beast for being old-fashioned, he turned to Modu and said, how do we get down? Open the teleportation gate or take the stairs. As Adam killed the first devil, Leonore realized that this was the devil's lair that Adam had mentioned, and immediately ordered the stone-winged beast to join the battle. Modu stood up and said to Li Feng, you were right. The reason why God allowed Adam to exist is because he wanted Adam to guide the stone-winged beast to the devil's lair and completely eliminate the devil in the world. Li Feng blinked inexplicably. He felt that Modu's brain might have been overstimulated. He seemed to have become a funny guy. To completely eliminate the devil in the world? Are you kidding me? Stonewings haven't completed the task for centuries. Adam. Li Feng glared at the stone-winged beasts that were attacking the demons. Compared with the stone-winged beasts that used swords to kill the demons in the past, they now had some familiar magic marks on their upper bodies. Li Feng was sure that these magic marks were in the Solomon spell. Appeared in the book. In addition, there are two stone-winged beasts hovering high in the sky, holding a copy of the Key of Solomon in their hands and chanting spells loudly. Li Feng looked at Modu speechlessly. So when you mean to destroy the light devil, you mean that I gave the Key of Solomon to the stone-winged beast, and Adam's role was just to lead the way. The orange portal suddenly appeared among the devils, which stunned the devils. They all looked up at the two stone-winged beasts who were chanting spells, thinking, what is going on? Another curse and another halo of light. The stone-winged beast no longer plays with swords and magic. When did it happen? We didn't hear the boss tell us. When Li Feng brandished a blazing long knife and joined the team of killing demons, Adam glanced at Leonore, who was still on the roof, casually killed a demon and ran away. Didn't the stonewing want to see how many human corpses nobiles had collected? Then come along. Leonore noticed Adam's leaving figure and glanced at the devils who were either eliminated or weakened into soft-footed shrimps. Feeling that victory was already within reach, Leonore turned her head and said, follow Adam, he will lead us to find the demons waiting for resurrection. Corpse. After a while, Leonore, who was high up in the sky, saw Adam hurriedly running out of a house. She noticed that at the door of the house, several black body bags were randomly discarded on the ground. Leonore thought about it, waving his wings and landing next to the body bag. Leonore thought about it, since there were corpses parked at the door of this house, how many corpses would there be in the house? There was no way this building was just the legendary crematorium. She didn't believe there was such a thing as a crematorium on Nabilis's territory. The interior of the building had long been dug deep by nobiles. Leonore's face was pale as she looked at the endless human corpses hanging on the shelves like merchandise, quietly waiting for nobiles to use scientific methods to resurrect her, and then from there an army of evil spirits was summoned from hell to possess these reanimated corpses. When Leonore was following Adam, Li Feng, who felt that the devil was too weak to hone his sword skills, quietly left the team and followed Adam. To be precise, Li Feng used the high-altitude flying Leonore as a guide and trotted along the ground. Following Leonore until Leonore entered the building where the body was stored, Li Feng quietly walked out of the dark corner and threw a scroll full of magic circles on the ground. The purpose of Li Feng's trip was not only to hone his sword skills, but also to try to capture a devil. When he killed the devil with the stonewing beast, Li Feng had many opportunities to capture a devil, but Li Feng was not sure what would happen if he did so. What will stonewing beast and Mordo think and do? Looking at the direction Adam was leaving, Li Feng felt a little regretful. After all, I am still not strong enough. In Li Feng's initial vision, the Devil Prince Nobilis was the best trophy, but considering the strength of both parties, Li Feng felt that he, a rookie, should honestly capture a weak but talented scientist. Devil. I can't be sure that the devil sealing magic circle I made can seal Nobilis. If it fails to seal it, then I will be in trouble. I remember that there was a devil who coveted me, physical body. What if I just walked up to Nobilis and that guy saw that I have the talent of time and space, my magic power is still the dark side, it would be weird if I didn't possess him. After Adam guided Leonore to the building full of corpses, he hurried into Wade's laboratory. He knew that Nobilis could only rely on Wade, who had read the entire Frankenstein experiment notes, to resurrect the corpse. Since Wade is now in the hands of Nobilis, and judging by the devil's impatience, Adam feels that Wade and Nobilis will definitely conduct experiments on resurrecting corpses in the laboratory at this time. Holding two sharp blades, Adam rushed into the laboratory without thinking and faced Nobilis alone. Nobilis was surprised and glanced at the weapon in Adam's hand, feeling a little funny. Who gave you the courage to face the noble devil prince? Or did Frankenstein fail to activate your brain when he resurrected you? Frankenstein, it's great to have you back, Nobilis said as he walked in on Adam, who let his guard down. Adam said with a fierce expression, I came back to destroy you and your experiments. The Stonewing Monastery will exist forever, and mankind will not perish. Nobilis raised his eyebrows and said contemptuously, I don't know how many laboratories like this there are in the world. As for monasteries and humans, no one can stop them from perishing with you, the monster, Nobilis said as he revealed the prototype of the devil. Although Adam was born as a suture monster, his strength and speed far exceed that of humans, but after Nobilis showed his devilish posture, Adam only made 3 cuts on Nobilis's abdomen, making the wounds form a 3 symbol. He was pushed far away by Nobilis. On the side, Wade, who had found the opportunity to stop the experiment, was choked by Nobilis before he finished operating the computer and said, It's too late, Dr. Wade, we have already obtained all the useful data. After saying that, Nobilis threw Wade towards a machine that was burning with electric arcs. When Adam saw that his only partner who recognized him was about to be burned to death by the arc, he quickly got up and flew towards Wade, pushing him away from the dangerous arc. Nobilis found it a bit funny. A monster actually wanted to pick up a girl while fighting me. This is looking down on me. Nobilis walked up to Adam, who was injured by the arc, pinched Adam's neck with one hand, and drew magic patterns on his forehead with blood to let the evil spirit possess Adam, and said, I know you will come back, you have been alone all this time, I know what you want, I will make hundreds, thousands of you, I have been collecting human corpses for centuries, and as long as I resurrect the corpses, I can call forth an army from hell, and you will be part of my army. You will no longer be alone. After saying that, Nobilis raised Adam and recited the spell to summon the evil spirits loudly. On the other side, as soon as Li Feng laid out the scroll and hid aside, he saw an old man with dry skin and gray hair, wearing a simple biochemical protective suit and hurriedly walking out of the building holding a mobile hard drive. Li Feng grinned silently. As he walked out of the hiding place, he stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. An irregular glass wall instantly appeared in front of the old man. The old man was stunned, then looked back at the long knife in Li Feng's hand, pretending to be panicked and scared, and said, Who are you? I'm just an old man taking care of the corpse. Please let me go. Li Feng pointed to the irregular glass walls around him and said, This is a mirror space. Without my permission, you will never be able to get out in this life, let alone return to hell. Then he pointed to the scroll on the ground and said, Now I give you 2 choices. Get into the seal on your own initiative, or be disabled by me and then be sealed by me. The old man knew very well that the stone-winged beast could not see the true form of the devil. He felt that the young man with a big belly in front of him could not tell whether he was a devil or a human. As for the seal, he was just fooling himself. Thinking of this, the old man grimaced and said tremblingly, "I don't know what you are talking about." Before the old man finished speaking, Li Feng had already shot the playing cards in his hand at the old man. The old man sensed the energy on the playing cards and subconsciously turned sideways to avoid Kepi with a reaction far beyond that of ordinary people. Li Feng whistled, suppressed the flames on the long knife, and said, "Wow, you can still be so dexterous at your age. Do you have any secrets to longevity? Tell me and it will help me live a few more years. Also, I know who you are." On the surface, the experiment of resurrecting corpses was completed in Wade's laboratory. In fact, secretly you have been copying Dr. Wade's experiments under the orders of Nobilis. I know the computer in the studio is connected to Wade's computer so that you can complete the experiment of resurrecting the corpse simultaneously. Quote. Li Feng pointed at the mobile USB flash drive in the old man's hand with his long knife and said, "If I guessed correctly, that little thing contains the data of the resurrected corpse, right?" As soon as the old man saw Li Feng's posture, he knew that his disguise was no longer effective. The other party knew everything about his identity in the mobile USB disk. The old man simply revealed his ugly devil prototype and said, "When you go to hell, I will make you live a long life and burn you in the fire of hell forever." After saying that, the old man rushed towards Li Feng. Li Feng fired out a playing card again without thinking. While he rushed towards the old man with his knife, Li Feng was secretly preparing the time spell. What he wanted was to seal a demon who had reason and could communicate with words, not a flaming demon soul that could not communicate. So when he chopped at the old man, Li Feng paid attention to his hands and only chopped off the old man's hands and feet without hurting him, head and heart. Although the old man has gray hair and is quite old, he is much more skilled than those Luo devils. If it weren't for the long knife in Li Feng's hand that could hurt the old man, it would really be uncertain who would die and who would live in a bare-handed fight. After another confrontation, Li Feng carefully avoided an attack from the old man and quickly swung his knife to force the old man to avoid the blade in the direction he expected. At the same time, he shot the prepared time-slowing spell at the old man. When the old man looked at his actions in a confused expression, like in slow motion in a movie, Li Feng quickly cut off the old man's hands and feet. Before the old man could break away from the time-slowing spell, Li Feng immediately activated the scroll on the ground. Under Li Feng's control, an inexplicable suction force emerged from the scroll, sucking the dull old man into the scroll. Seeing that the old man had been sealed, Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief, picked up the mobile USB drive on the ground, tied the scroll and hid it in his arms. As soon as Li Feng opened the portal and walked out of the mirror space, he saw a dense red light in the building in front of him. Li Feng was stunned, and then curled his lips and said, "A red light represents an evil spirit. Although you are many in number, you are still useful. Don't you know that Leonore and the others now have a copy of the Key of Solomon? Are you planning to breathe air for a few seconds before being sent back to hell?" Before Li Feng finished complaining, he vaguely heard a stone-winged beast reciting the incantation on the Key of Solomon, loudly in the building. After a while, Li Feng, who was sitting on the steps of the gate recovering his mana, felt something was wrong. Although the stone-winged beast spell destroyed many weak vengeful spirits, some powerful vengeful spirits still continued to emerge from hell. Li Feng instantly understood what was going on. After all, the Key of Solomon, in the stone-winged beast's hand was a copy. Compared with the original work that contained magical power, the spell's ability was already weakened a lot. Thinking of this, Li Feng got up and ran into the building, looking for Leonore's figure, while holding out the original Key of Solomon in his hand, and shouted, "Queen Leonore, take this Key of Solomon, and recite the incantation." Quote. Leonore, who was busy destroying the corpses to prevent them from being possessed by demons, suddenly heard Li Feng's voice and subconsciously looked at the book in Li Feng's hand. Without thinking, she flew to Li Feng, said thank you and quickly opened the book. Go to the page of restraining evil spirits. Soon, Leonore held the Key of Solomon in both hands and recited a spell loudly towards the fireball representing the devil's soul. The first person to hold the Key of Solomon and recite the incantation was Ophir. Li Feng remembered that when he recited the incantation, his whole body changed from gray to white, but the stone-winged beast queen in front of him recited the incantation in an extraordinary way. The first thing is holiness. I don't know why. When Li Feng looked at Leonore who was chanting the curse, he felt in his heart that Leonore was the most beautiful woman in the world. Even just looking at her was blasphemy against Leonore. The second is the change in Leonore's body. If Leonore could still see a bit of a plaster statue in the stone-winged beast form before, now that her wings are slowly growing feathers, her skin has become crystal clear. At this moment, it was as if Leonore was no longer a stone-winged beast, but a living angel. After all, Li Feng was a spiritually powerful mage. When he felt something strange, he immediately turned his attention to the corpse. While reaching out to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead, Li Feng cursed in his heart, "What kind of operation is this? Leonore becomes just like an angel. How did your ability to seduce emerge? I almost did it. I became religious and gave up my identity as a mage to become a priest. So is the god of this world. Is Leonore your daughter or granddaughter? Knowing that she is about to be besieged by evil spirits, you give Leonore so much energy. Now let alone sending these evil spirits to hell, I guess under this wave of energy, all these evil spirits were left on the earth and turned into ashes. The problem is that the earth does not lack this kind of fertilizer. Can you please take back some of the energy? I am so frightened." The energy God gave Leonore made Li Feng, who used dark energy, feel uncomfortable all over. He felt that God was not only preparing to destroy this wave of demons, but was also preparing to destroy himself. Li Feng's eyes twitched slightly and he turned around and ran out of the building. There is no way in this place. Wait, I kindly give you the key of Solomon. Is it easy for me? Not far after running out of the building, 5 huge soul fireballs soared into the sky, merged into a larger soul fireball in the air, and rushed to the underground of the building where the corpses were stored. Li Feng twitched the corner of his mouth, patted his chest and said to himself, "Ma Dan, I almost forgot about this." What did Li Feng forget? He forgot that when Adam was about to be possessed by an evil spirit, his soul suddenly broke out of his shell and drove the evil spirit out of his body. He picked up a piece of metal on the ground and stabbed Nobilis, and stabbed it along Nobilis's lower abdomen. Drawing towards the Adam's apple, the symbol of 3, before Nobilis turned into the symbol of Feng, to restrain the devil. As soon as this symbol of Feng was completed, Nobilis immediately turned into 5 soul fireballs and was sent to hell. As for why Nobilis could be killed by drawing the Feng symbol, Li Feng said that the rules of this world are so bad, what can he do? Nobilis is indeed a prince of noble status among the devils, and the noise he made when he returned home was in line with his status. Other devils quietly turned into soul fireballs and found a hole in the ground to go home, but what about Nobilis? The huge soul fireball destroyed its own nest with great force when it returned to hell, and also pulled the evil spirits that were weakened to waste and survived by chance back to hell. In response, Li Feng said that you are awesome, you just left and took all your things back to hell, not to mention leaving a hair in the world, even the land was taken back to hell. What's the matter? You bought the land with money, so you are going to take the land back to hell. You are still a noble prince, but I think you are a poor fool. Li Feng curled his lips and raised a middle finger to Nobilis in his heart. After all, it is an old nest that has been run for many years, there should be a lot of good things in it. I originally thought about picking up some bargains in your old nest, but what happened? So stingy. Although Nobilis was sent back to hell, Li Feng's eyes twitched as he looked at Leonore, who was still holy and had crystal clear skin. The war is over, can your father or grandfather take back the energy? I shuddered when I saw it. Leonore vaguely understood that she had evolved because God gave her too much energy. Leonore curiously touched her feather wings, and then looked at Li Feng who was retreating in the distance. When she was about to return the key of Solomon in her hand to Li Feng, she suddenly sensed something. Li Feng saw that Leonore first flew towards him, then instantly turned around and flew towards the hole created by Nobilis when he returned to hell. He pursed his lips, opened the portal to the monastery, and muttered, "Is this to save Adam? Is this considered a beauty saving a hero? I just don't know if Adam, a stitched monster, can withstand the tremendous energy of Leonore. It would be fun if he can't withstand it and turned into ashes." As soon as he walked to the monastery, Li Feng saw Mordo circling around a suspected female stone-winged beast. The stone-winged beast that was being looked at seemed unable to bear Mordo's affectionate gaze and retreated in fear. Scratching his head, Li Feng walked to Mordo, raised his right hand and prepared to pat Mordo on the shoulder. After thinking about it, he put his right hand down again, swallowed his saliva, and whispered, "Master Mordo, don't tell me that the stone-winged beast blocked the knife for you in your battle with the devil, but your interpretation of the word partner became distorted, causing you to fall in love with the stone-winged beast." If Mordo fell in love with a stone-winged beast, how would I explain it to Ancient One when I go back? What if Mordo stays in this world and doesn't return to the Marvel world? Ancient One will peel my skin off. However, cross-species love should be true love. As for reproductive isolation, this is a problem. If reproductive isolation is solved, what species will the child born by Stonewing Beast and Mordo be? Stonewing Beast is essentially a stone. Could it be a stone man? Mordo rolled his eyes at Li Feng, pointed at the wound on Stonewing Beast and said, "Look. That's your wife. It's not good for me to see her for free." Li Feng looked at the Stonewing Beast in the direction Mordo pointed while complaining. The Stonewing Beast in front of him had some magic patterns engraved on it. Although Li Feng didn't quite understand the function of these magic patterns, he saw that the wounds on the Stonewing Beast were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he had a rough idea of the function of these magic patterns in his mind. Staring, Li Feng found that he seemed to have underestimated the role of the Key of Solomon. It had only been a short time since the Stone-Winged Beast had the magic patterns in the book, and the Stone-Winged Beast had already played with the magic patterns in the book. If the Stone-Winged Beast studied the healing magic patterns thoroughly, would all the Stone-Winged Beasts become beast versions of Wolverine? This was just the healing magic pattern. If the killing magic patterns were engraved all over the body. Li Feng silently lit a candle for the devil of this world in his heart, and said, "I will go back to the room to recover my magic power, you can study the magic patterns slowly." After a long time, Li Feng, who was sitting at the head of the bed to recover his magic power, took out the flat wine pot filled with holy water and drank it carefully. I don't know if the holy water in this world will become poisonous water after passing through the portal. After all, the rules of different worlds are different. Shaking the flat wine flask, Li Feng estimated that the holy water in the flask would be enough for him to drink for a few days. Based on the consumption of one mouthful per day, it would take about 10 days to drink it all, so I'd better stay in this world for 10 days before returning to the Marvel world. But Li Feng had a headache when he thought that he had no money and no friends in this world. If he didn't want to live on the streets like a homeless person, he could only stay in the Stone-Winged Beast Monastery and face Leonore, who exuded holy light all day long. Li Feng, who was worried, scratched his eyebrows and thought, should I just live on the streets? Just when Li Feng was thinking about how to find some thugs to rob, Ophir's voice came from outside the door. "Austin, the Queen asked me to return the Key of Solomon to you and thank you on her behalf." Li Feng pushed open the door and took the Key of Solomon from Ophir. Ophir explained with a hint of apology on his face. "Originally, the Queen wanted to thank you in person, but you also know that the Queen could not control her own surging energy after communicating with God with the Key of Solomon, which led to amazing charm. Even we were affected to some extent, so now the Queen can only stay alone in the quiet room to get familiar with these energies as soon as possible." Li Feng nodded, thinking happily in his heart, "I wish Leonore would not come out." Li Feng glanced at Mordo's room and saw that the door was open. He asked curiously, "Is Mordo still studying the magic patterns on your bodies?" Ophir looked down at the magic patterns on his body and said, "Mordo and Adam are just chatting on the roof." After hesitating, Ophir asked curiously, "Do you really think he has a soul?" Although Li Feng didn't see Adam after the battle, he knew the plot, so he nodded affirmatively. Ophir shrugged, saying that he couldn't understand how the suture monster had its soul, and could only imagine that it was God's reward for Adam. "By the way, the Queen asked me to take you to our collection room before entering the quiet room. You can choose some props or materials as our thank you gift to you." Li Feng's eyes lit up after hearing this. He was almost running out of playing cards. He was short of materials and needed to forge some more. Leonore's thank you gift came at the right time. But Li Feng took out the flat wine flask from his pocket and said, "Can you give me some holy water?" Li Feng believed in his own strength more than props. and Li Feng could feel that his mage qualifications were slowly improving after using holy water, and he might be able to create a powerful fireball after a while. Ophir knew how complicated the production process of the holy water Li Feng drank was, how precious the materials were, and how little stock there was in the monastery, so he shook his head regretfully and said, "I need to inform the queen before I can reply to you." Pointing to Li Feng's flat flask, Ophir continued, "If you want to continue using holy water, I advise you to forget it. I don't know if you have heard of drug resistance. These special holy waters will also cause if you are resistant. The queen has already calculated the amount of holy water for you when she gave you the holy water. Therefore, even too much holy water cannot help you purify your mind and improve your mage qualifications. If you want to use holy water to deal with evil creatures, then I did not say." Li Feng was stunned for a moment, and he thought it was right. If the holy water could infinitely improve the qualifications of a mage, he might as well consider staying in this world and improve his qualifications to the point where even the gods would drool before leaving. Waving his hand, Li Feng indicated that he did not want the holy water. After reporting some ordinary magic materials to Ophir, he turned back to the room to study the spells on the Key of Solomon. As for the devil sealed in the scroll, Li Feng didn't even think about it. You can talk to the devil in the monastery, even if you hide in the mirror space. 10 days later, Li Feng sat cross-legged alone at the training ground where the Stonewing Beast practiced martial arts, and drank the last sip of holy water. After a long time, Li Feng, who sensed the change in mana, suddenly stood up. As he slowly raised his right hand, a fireball the size of a football suddenly appeared in his palm. Grinning, Li Feng waved his right hand, causing the fireball in his palm to rotate around himself a few times before shooting towards the archery target 50 meters away. However, the fireball rubbed against the edge of the target and flew into the distance, dissipating in the air after about 100 meters. Li Feng scratched his eyebrows and said to himself, "The holy water purifies my soul and also strengthens my mental power, so now I can accurately control the fireball within 15 meters, so that the fireball can automatically track at 15 meters, but if you exceed 15 meters, you can only aim in advance and let the fireball shoot towards the enemy along a fixed trajectory. However, the flying speed of the fireball is a bit slow, similar to that of a bow and arrow. There are too many people in the Marvel world who can avoid bows and arrows." Quote, "Counting the time, it's time to go back to the Marvel world, but I'm very busy after going back. First, I will forge some mana-saving playing cards, and then practice the accuracy of fireballs and enhance the fireball speed. If the fireball is shot out, it would be even better to reach bullet speed, and finally pry some magic out of the devil's mouth." After leaving the training ground, Li Feng found Modu, who was chatting with Adam and Wade, and said, "It seems you have made new friends in this world." After saying that, Li Feng glanced at Wade ambiguously and said to Adam, "I haven't congratulated you on gaining a soul in love." "Thank you." Adam turned to look at Wade, who was slightly blushing, and said, "It feels good to be a human being, at least you are not alone." Modu looked up and down at Li Feng, who had greatly improved his power, and said, "Are you ready to go home?" Seeing Li Feng nod, Modu stood up and hugged Adam, saying, "The flight to take me home is about to take off. Take care, my friend." Adam, who hugged Modo, patted Modo on the back and said, "I will, and you should take care of yourself." When Li Feng and Modu went back to their rooms to pack their luggage, Ophir hurriedly found Li Feng, handed Li Feng a scroll and a wooden box with weak energy fluctuations, and said, "The queen knows that you are leaving, and this is what she asked me to do. The scroll handed over to you records the queen's analysis of the magic principles of the Key of Solomon, and what is contained in the wooden box is a gift from her." After speaking, Ophir pointed to Modu's room and said, "The queen also prepared a gift for Modu. I will give the gift to him now. Take care of yourself." Returning to the Marvel Universe, Li Feng immediately looked at the electronic clock on the bedside, and quietly spit out the mobile USB flash drive wrapped in mana from his mouth. He muttered to himself in confusion, "There is no reason, we are killing people. I only stayed in the Demon Warrior world for half a month, and I came to the garbage alley of the Demon Warrior world and used the same energy to open the time travel door and return. How come the Marvel world lasted a month? The time has doubled." Modu, who was on the side, rubbed his stomach that was uncomfortable due to being squeezed by the crossing door. He glanced at Li Feng, who was staring at the clock. After thinking about it, he understood what Li Feng was thinking. He said with a hint of envy in his tone, "Two of them. Isn't it normal for the world's time to be unequal? Have you forgotten the changes after drinking the holy water? Although the total amount of your own mana has not changed, the purity of your mana has doubled, and you are still unable to perfectly control your mana output. It's strange that the two worlds have equal time." Forgot about this. Li Feng took out the gift box given by Ayano, lowered his head to check it, and said awkwardly, "What gift did Ayano give you? Take it out and show it to me." "Holy water." Modu took out a kettle from his pocket and said, "What do you want? My strength is much higher than yours, so this thing won't help me much. If it's to deal with the devil, I believe in me more the magic weapon in my hand. After all, no one knows that the super effective holy water in Leonor's world can deal with the devils in our world. I don't want to test the effect of the holy water with my life in the battle." Li Feng scratched his head, thinking that he might be able to use holy water to deal with the old devil sealed in the scroll in the future. He took out the flask from his arms and said, "Give me some in case I encounter a powerful devil one day." Quote. Modu took the flask and poured the holy water from the kettle into the flask. He looked at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand and said curiously, "I just killed some devils with the stone-winged beast and gave me the precious holy water. The Key of Solomon you contributed will be of greater help to the stone-winged beast. Look at what precious gift Leonor has prepared for you." At this time, Li Feng opened the door to go home and was noticed by Ji Yuyi. When Li Feng was about to open the wooden box to see what gift it was, Ji Yuyi suddenly knocked on the door and said, "Li Feng, Modu, welcome home." Modu hurriedly opened the door, put his hands together and saluted, and said, "Master Ji Yuyi." Ji Yuyi glanced at Modu, then looked at Li Feng, raised his eyebrows and said, "It seems that you have gained a lot in the other world, and your magic power has improved beyond my imagination." Li Feng scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly, "I rely on external objects to improve my strength, so by the way, we are going to see the gift given to me by a queen in another world, shall we together? Although I don't know what external objects you use to enhance your strength, I can see that you digest it well, at least there are no side effects." Ji Yuyi glanced at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand, waved his hand to create a mirror space and said, "Different worlds have different according to the rules, for safety reasons, please check your gifts in the mirror space." In the mirror space, Li Feng carefully opened the wooden box, frowned and looked at a white feather in the box. "What's the situation? Leonor knew that I was Chinese, so she gave me a piece of hair as a gift but with great affection." When Li Feng was about to take out the feather to see what kind of species it was, Ji Yuyi quickly stopped him and said, "I can feel the huge energy in the feather, and its energy is dissipating when you open the wooden box. Close it." "A wooden box? I think this wooden box can prevent the energy in the feathers from dissipating." While thinking about it, Ji Yuyi asked, "Tell me what kind of world you are in. The feathers of ordinary creatures do not have such holy and huge energy." Modu glanced at Li Feng and told Ji Yuyi everything he had seen in the world of the Demon Slayer warrior, but Li Feng heard some confusion in Modu's words. After thinking about it, he understood that Modu wanted to ask Ji Yuyi some questions, such as what is justice, what is evil, and what behavior destroys the balance of nature. Probably Modu was embarrassed to express his inner doubts in front of me. Thinking of this, Li Feng interrupted Modu's narration, clasped his hands and said to Ji Yuyi, "Master, I'm a little hungry. Let's go to the cafeteria to find some food first." Modu heard the meaning of Li Feng's words and said with a smile, "I prepared a gift for you before leaving for another world. Don't be too busy leaving Taj later. I will take you to see the gift." Li Feng subconsciously looked at Ji Yuyi. Ji Yuyi had paid Modu for taking him through time, and now Modu had given him a gift, which made Li Feng somewhat embarrassed. "The gift has nothing to do with time travel," Modu said with a little embarrassment. "You agreed to let Master Ancient One try to teach me time spells, so this is a thank you gift for learning time magic." Li Feng shrugged and said, "You'd better wait until you learn the time spell to thank me." After saying that, Li Feng returned to reality through the portal and walked out of the room. On the way to the restaurant, Li Feng looked at the wooden box repeatedly. The holy energy probably meant that Liam was plucking the feathers on his own wings. Is this a pseudo-angel feather? I originally prepared holy water to force the old man to use devil spells, but now I can just use feathers. Early the next morning, Modu walked to the door of Li Feng's room with a few books and banged the door hard. Li Feng, who was wrapped in quilt and sleeping soundly on the bed, helplessly stood up and shouted, it's coming, please don't be gentle. Knock on the door. If it breaks, who's responsible? I can't afford it anyway. Opening the door, Li Feng took a breath and looked at Modu. You came to me so early, what's the matter? Modu handed the book in his hand to Li Feng and said, these are the notes I took when I first practiced spiritual magic. I hope it will be useful to you. After speaking, Modu looked around, and when he saw no one around, he took out a book from his pocket and handed it to Li Feng, and whispered, this is the dark spell you asked Ji Yi to modify for you. Li Feng smiled stupidly and quickly took the book and put it in his arms, turned around and went back to the room to get dressed, and said, thanks, by the way, I will start my trip again after breakfast. Modu leaned against the door frame, watched Li Feng packing his luggage, and said, do you have a travel destination? Li Feng spread his hands. You also know that I have neither friends nor family, and I have not traveled to other worlds, so I just go wherever I go. Maybe I will find a place with beautiful scenery to study. After saying this, Li Feng patted his chest and indicated what he was going to do with a, look. Modu understood that Li Feng was going to find a hidden place to study dark spells. Although it is dangerous to study dark spells, it is even more dangerous to study dark spells in Kamatage. After all, you are surrounded by mages who are sensitive to energy. Modu nodded to express his understanding and said, I will send you to New York just in time to give you a gift. Don't be too busy to refuse. Trust me, you will like my gift. Li Feng looked sideways at Modu, pointed to the books about spirits, and said, what gift is so mysterious? Is it more precious than these books? It's not precious. Modu spread his hands and said, you will know when the time comes. Well, we will know when the time comes. Li Feng shrugged and said, I'm looking forward to it. After breakfast, Modu took Li Feng to New York through the temple portal. As soon as they walked out of the portal, Daniel, who was guarding the temple, walked up to them and said, Modu, long time no see, and you, Li Feng, is the different world fun? Quote. Li Feng was stunned. Why do I feel that all the magicians at Kamatage know that I will travel through time? Before Li Feng said anything, Modu rubbed his eyebrows and explained to Li Feng, don't worry, only Ancient Yi, me, and Daniel know that you can travel through time. Then, Modu smiled bitterly at Daniel and said, you will know if you try it. It will throw all my 3 concepts to the ground and I won't be able to fight them back. I'm not that interested in time travel or anything like that. I've seen a lot of magical creatures in outer space when I was guarding the temple. Daniel didn't know what Modu had gone through. He wanted to know what happened to change his outlook on life. But seeing Li Feng carrying the bulging luggage, he guessed, are you leaving Kamatage? Before Li Feng could explain, Modu said, there is a saying in the Celestial Empire that it is better to travel thousands of miles than to read thousands of books. Li Feng is going to practice magic while traveling. Daniel stepped aside to get out of the way and smiled thoughtfully. Now I understand why you bought the RV. Is it for Li Feng? RV. Li Feng turned to look at Modu. The gift you are talking about is RV. Modu rolled his eyes at Daniel and said, originally I wanted to give Li Feng a surprise, but now it's okay. Since you told me in advance, there's no surprise anymore. Daniel spread his hands and said, okay, my bad. Then he winked at Li Feng and said, I hope you like that RV. After speaking, Daniel bowed and left. After leaving the temple, Modu took Li Feng to a parking lot not far from the temple. He took out the car keys from his pocket, pointed at a brand new small luxury RV, and said, I heard you before, I want to own my own RV. Although the surprise was ruined by Daniel, I still hope you like this gift. Li Feng took the key with a smile, walked around the RV, opened the door and walked into the car. The space in a small RV is not very big, but it is enough for the single Li Feng, and Li Feng believes that sooner or later he will be able to find the space magic, and after that, he can magically modify the RV. Hee. Don't look at my RV, it's small on the outside and can't accommodate many people, but it can house whales inside. Seeing that the kitchen, bedroom and bathroom in the RV were all complete, Li Feng checked them one by one and sat on the driver's seat. he said to Mo Du outside the window. I like the gift very much. Thank you, man. Seeing that Li Feng had started the RV, Mo Du waved goodbye and moved out of the way, saying, Kamatage welcomes you back at any time. In the driver's seat, Li Feng stretched his left hand out of the window and waved to Mo Du, indicating that he heard him, stepped on the accelerator, and drove the RV toward the city. Before leaving New York, Li Feng still had one important thing to do. New York, Chinatown. It was almost noon after Li Feng bought a large amount of dry food and mineral water from the supermarket. He parked the RV in the parking lot, carrying all his belongings worth less than $10,000, and carrying a shoulder bag containing spell books and scrolls, and randomly picked a house to read. I walked into what seemed like a delicious Chinese restaurant. If you want to ask how Li Feng knew that this Chinese restaurant tastes good, of course he guessed it based on the customer flow. After all, a restaurant with bad taste will not attract business. Pushing open the door of the restaurant, Li Feng looked with satisfaction at the clean, tidy and retro-decorated environment. Just as Li Feng was looking at the restaurant environment and looking for a vacant seat, a Chinese woman wearing black leather clothes walked up to Li Feng and said in Chinese, Sir, alone. Hearing the familiar Chinese made Li Feng feel more at ease, and he had the urge to spend all his money in the restaurant. Li Feng wondered what it was like for the restaurant waiter to wear black leather instead of work clothes, and nodded and said, Of course. The leather-clad waiter glanced at the crowded hall and said with a smile, The first floor is full, please come to the second floor to dine. Li Feng said it didn't matter where he sat to eat. During this period, he and Modo first escorted the devils in a plague-ridden world, whether they ate or slept well, and then went to the world of demon slayer warriors to torment the devils non-stop. You must know that stone-winged beasts are essentially stones. What do stones eat? Therefore, the stone-winged beast did not know how to cook at all. During the time he lived in the monastery, Li Feng drank water and ate cheap bread bought in the supermarket every day. Now, he just wants to have a good Chinese meal to comfort his injured stomach. Under the leadership of the leather-clad waiter, Li Feng walked to the second floor of the restaurant. When passing by the kitchen door, a Chinese chef in charge glanced at the waiter and shouted in surprise, May. Why are you here? May looked at the chef with a helpless tone and said, Mom is coming to New York to stay for a few days, but you know how bad my cooking skills are, so I'm going to buy some semi-finished dishes from you and take them home to heat up with my mom. Enjoy Chinese food together. The chef shook his head and said with a smile, You should really put your work aside and practice your cooking skills, girls are all good. May and the chef said helplessly at the same time, As long as you have good cooking skills, you can win a man's heart. After saying that, May drooped her head and curled her lips and said, You have said this hundreds of times, and my ears are ringing. If I don't tell you any more, I will take the diners to the second floor to order. Li Feng looked at the fake waiter speechlessly. He could tell that the lady named May was not a waiter at all, but a diner like him. The difference was that Li Feng ate in the restaurant, while May was going to take it home to eat. Sister, how can you order for me if you are not a waiter? I will order Peking duck later. You said you would wait a moment, and then you ran to the kitchen and asked, There is no Peking duck. Aren't you delaying my meal? The chef also sensed that something was wrong, frowned and said, Where did that girl Xiaohui go? How can you let a customer be a waiter? It's so outrageous. May motioned Li Feng to go upstairs and said to the chef, Xiaohui has a stomachache. She went to the bathroom and asked me to help her with the shift. While the chef complained in a low voice that, lazy people poop a lot, Li Feng followed May to the second floor of the restaurant, chose a window along the street and sat down, and said, Braised pork, mushrooms and green vegetables, and some egg soup, and another big bowl of rice. After thinking about it, Li Feng thought he could have some wine or something in the RV at night, and said, Do you have fried peanuts, sweet and sour pork ribs, and plain chicken? These 3 dishes are packaged. Seeing May nodding cleanly, Li Feng cursed in his heart. He said yes without even asking. Did the restaurant get the goods from your farm? Before May could walk downstairs, a female scream came from the direction of the bathroom. May rushed to the bathroom without thinking, and she recognized that it was Xiaohui's voice. Li Feng curiously looked towards the bathroom. Li Feng vaguely smelled the smell of blood and scratched his head. Li Feng got up and walked to the bathroom. When he walked to the bathroom, Li Feng looked up at the bathroom with the word, men, written on it, and then looked at the women's bathroom next to it. Li Feng was certain that the smell of blood and the previous female screams came from the men's restroom, so the waiter named Xiao Wei went to the men's restroom, or Xiao Wei is actually a man, but the voice and name made me misunderstand Ma Dan. Is the male named Xiao Hui? What did his parents think? Is it crazy to want a daughter? Li Feng pushed open the men's restroom and saw Xiao Wei slumped on the ground, while Mei was holding a pistol in both hands, pointing it at a man with metallic bones on his back, and was beating up a man in a black suit. The burly and strange man shouted, "Don't move." Li Feng looked at Xiao Hui, who was wearing a skirt, with suspicion, and asked curiously, "Eldest brother? Eldest sister? Are you a boy or a girl?" Xiao Hui. Mei glanced at Li Feng with caring eyes and said, "Call an ambulance." After saying that, Mei put the pistol back into the gun bag, rubbed her fists, and walked towards the strange man while gritting her teeth and said, "I told you to stop, do you hear me?" The strange man didn't seem to hear what Mei was shouting at all. His eyes were still red and he was concentrating on beating the man in the suit who was already lying motionless on the ground. This weirdo can't stop chewing Zanmai. Li Feng originally thought he could see a fight scene between a beauty and a beast, and then his handsome hero saves the beauty. But what did he see? I saw Mei squatting down and punching the strange man on the cheek hard, and then Li Feng looked at the strange man who was unconscious on the spot with contempt, and couldn't help but complain in his heart, "Seeing that you ignored Mei who was holding a gun, and your back was covered with bones, I thought you had the blood inheritance limit of the corpse bone veins, you were so talented and brave. What's the result? You weak scumbag was so easily knocked out by a woman's punch. That's not right. A tall, weird man doesn't look like a weakling, so it should be said that Mei's fists are hard enough. By the way, Sister Mei, what kind of boxing skills do you practice? I want to learn it." Li Feng cursed while quietly casting a spell to look at the strange man's spirit body. With such obvious features on the strange man, if Li Feng still couldn't recognize that he was a stranger, did he really think that he had watched Marvel movies for so many years in vain? After a while, Li Feng pursed his lips and muttered in a low voice, "It is said that the alien's genes are defective. According to the principle that the body and the soul are closely related, once a creature like the alien activates its powers, its soul will also be affected." Scratching his head, Li Feng curled his lips and thought, "So I saw that this stranger's spirit body is as colorful as a rainbow, but the colors are a bit dim, just like a color-blind patient looking at a rainbow." Mei took out the handcuffs from her waist, cuffed the stranger's hands, and while checking whether the man in the suit was dead, she shouted to Li Feng in a rude voice, "Didn't you hear me asking you to call an ambulance?" Li Feng glanced at the man in the suit. He had already seen that this guy's spirit body was beginning to dissipate. This was only imagined by the dead. He cursed in his heart, "Why don't you call an ambulance? Just call the morgue." Spreading his hands, Li Feng said with innocent eyes, "I don't have a phone. If you don't believe me, you can search me." Mei had already realized that the man in the suit was hopeless. She gritted her teeth and glanced at Li Feng, saying, "Please leave the bathroom." Li Feng curled his lips and said disdainfully, "Just leave, but can you help me prepare the food first? Otherwise, there will be corpses in the restaurant, or they are starving to death. A diner died of starvation in the restaurant. What do you think the news will report tomorrow?" Mei felt like she was going crazy. Who are these people? How could they eat in a restaurant with peace of mind after seeing the corpse? Let's not talk about whether we can eat or not. It's surprising that the restaurant can operate normally. Mei was too lazy to pay attention to Li Feng. After holding up a gun and asking Li Feng to leave the bathroom, she took out her mobile phone and made a call, saying, "Sir, you'd better come to Chinatown. I'll send you the address. There's a strong man here with bones that reach his back. Let me open your eyes." Mei put down the phone, helped Xiao Hui up and said, "You go out to drink a glass of water first, but don't leave the restaurant. My colleague will be here soon." Mei helped Xiao Hui out of the restaurant, subconsciously looking for Li Feng, but there was no trace of Li Feng anywhere in the restaurant. Oops, Mei's eyes almost ignited with anger, and she muttered viciously, "What this guy said in front of me about being hungry and waiting for food was all lies to me. He just wanted me to subconsciously think that he would stay in the restaurant. As a result, he ran away a long time ago. Li Feng is not stupid. He knew that there was a strange murder case in the restaurant and still stupidly waited in the restaurant. But he knew that it was not the police but Shield who would come later. Sure enough, when Li Feng passed by the restaurant in his RV from the parking lot, the restaurant had been blocked. There were several black SUVs parked at the door, and several heavily armed soldiers wearing helmets and several wearing biohazard suits got out of the vehicles. Scientific researchers carrying instruments to scan everywhere. Sharp-eyed Li Feng also saw Fury with hair, but compared with the last time they met, Fury now wore an eye patch and became a one-eyed man. Li Feng stepped on the accelerator and rushed towards the suburbs, while cursing, "It's time to cut your hair. You are now the non-chief in my mind." Fury felt someone was looking at him when Li Feng passed by, and subconsciously looked around. After a while, Fury, who found nothing, walked into the second floor of the restaurant with a frown. Seeing that Mei was comforting the waiter, Fu Rui clapped his hands and instructed Mei to come over and report the specific situation. As for Xiaohui, of course there are professional psychologists to guide her, at least to ensure that Xiaohui will not talk nonsense about what she saw today. In the corner of the restaurant, after Mei described everything that happened in the bathroom to Fury in detail, she hesitated. She didn't know whether to tell Fury about Li Feng. From a certain point of view, Li Feng was indeed suspicious. First of all, he was calm when he saw the corpse. Moreover, during the short conversation between the two, Mei also found that Li Feng did not seem to be curious about the strange man in his eyes, but instead gave her a sense of strangeness. Not a weird feeling. This is very abnormal. When ordinary people see such a weird human being, not only shouting like Xiaohui, but at least giving a scared expression as the normal operation. Seeing Mei's hesitation, Fury asked, "Did you find anything else?" After thinking about it, Mei decided to tell Fury about Li Feng's performance. After Mei finished describing Li Feng's clothing and appearance, Fu Rui narrowed his eyes and said, "You said he is of Chinese descent and has a small belly." Seeing Mei nod in agreement, Fury took out a notepad from his pocket, quickly drew a sketch of Li Feng, and asked, "Is this the person?" The thing that impressed me most about him was that he wore slippers. By the way, did he wear slippers today? Mei nodded and said, "It's this person." She was a little curious. From Fury's tone, they not only knew each other, but they were also very familiar with each other. But what did the thing that impressed her most about him was that he wore slippers. What does it mean? Is it a personal quirk? Mei said with some doubt, "He didn't wear slippers, but a pair of boots." Fury's mouth curled up slightly. "When we returned to the Kree cruiser and didn't find your body, I knew you were still alive, but changing slippers to boots, does this mean that your taste is evolving? Or do you know that I call you the Slipper Man in the file, so you are wearing boots now, so that I can take the time to change the name in the file to the Boot Man?" Mei hesitated and asked, "Sir, do we need to call up his surveillance and check where he went?" "Of course," Fury whispered, "but only you and I know about this." Mei thought about it, nodded and said, "I'll use the excuse of investigating how the superpower with crooked bones entered the restaurant to see if I can find the little belly from the surveillance." "Good excuse," Fury laughed, "but Austin is Chinese like you, I wonder if you will get mad if you call him that. You are really familiar with each other, otherwise how do you know how he hates others to call him?" Mei narrowed her eyes, pointed at the unconscious superpower, and whispered, "Is this Austin a superpower like him? I have to find him as soon as possible before he loses control, so as not to hurt innocent people." Fury raised his eyebrows, thought about it, shook his head and said, "Maybe, this matter is quite complicated. To be honest, I hope he is a superpower." In fact, Fury is not sure whether Li Feng is a superpower, and he is more likely to guess that Li Feng is an alien in human skin. There are many reasons for this speculation. First, when Fury returned to the Kree cruiser, he found that the Kree elite troops killed by Carol had a lot less equipment. Now the scientists in the Bureau are still cracking the Kree technology and checking whether these weapons carry alien germs. Moreover, the scientists in the Bureau have proved that some weapons are not usable by humans at all, and Li Feng was so bold as to steal alien equipment. Does this mean that Li Feng knows how to use these alien weapons? In addition, although the green-skinned Taros said that there were no missing spaceships on the cruiser, Fury felt that just because he could not find Li Feng's trace, he had reason to guess that Li Feng was driving the spaceship back to Earth or leaving Earth. And an Earthling who showed that he could not even fly a plane suddenly drove an alien spaceship. Doesn't this also mean that Li Feng is an alien? Finally, there is another reason to prove that Li Feng is an alien. When a document showing that Li Feng was just an ordinary human being was placed on his desk, Fury was immediately terrified. The Strategic National Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau where he worked was an organization that claimed to be able to find out where the mouse's ancestors had dug holes for 18 generations by catching a mouse. What about now? Is the ordinary Li Feng in the document really the Austin he met at the beginning? They are completely two different people. The Austin he met might be an alien in disguise. Fury recalled that he spent a lot of energy mobilizing the resources of the Bureau to find Li Feng, but he didn't even find his shadow. This made him think that Li Feng actually drove a spaceship to leave the Earth when he was on the Kree cruiser. As a result, just when he was about to give up looking for Li Feng suddenly appeared in New York. Fury felt that the opportunity was rare and he couldn't let it go if he passed by. He had to meet Li Feng. Because no matter whether Li Feng himself uses alien weapons or sells them to the black market, Fury needs to know the whereabouts of these alien weapons, and ask Li Feng which planet he is from and the purpose of coming to Earth. This is his duty that he cannot escape. However, considering Li Feng's kindness and the force that rescued Talos single-handedly, Fury felt that he could bring Mei, who is also skilled in force, to meet Austin, who is suspected to be an alien but is wearing the skin of Li Feng. After a while, Mei ran to Fury, who was sitting at the dining table drinking a drink, holding a pile of information in her hand, and said, "Sir, there is a good news and a bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" Fury held his forehead with one hand, curled his lips and said, "Let's hear the bad news first. At least there will be good news to heal my little heart later." Mei shrugged and said, "Although the information of the guy with the skeleton on his back was found, he disappeared strangely during the escort process." Strange. Fury rubbed his eyebrows and asked, "Is it stranger than him suddenly growing an exoskeleton?" Mei handed the information in his hand to Fury and said, "The convoy escorting the superpowers as 3 the sealed compartment holding the person with special abilities was in the middle of the team, but when they arrived at the base and opened the sealed compartment, they found that not only the person with special abilities disappeared, but also the 4 soldiers in the compartment disappeared." Quote, "The people at the base checked the sealed compartment and found no signs of fighting. Moreover, during the escort process, the surveillance of the rear car of the sealed compartment showed that the vehicle holding the person with special abilities did not move at all, and there was not even a bump." Quote, "The most regrettable thing is that we have not even collected the DNA of the person with special abilities." Quote, Fury flipped through the information in front of him and said, "That means we only collected information about the person with special abilities when he was still within the normal range." "Yes, sir. This news is indeed bad enough." Fury took a deep breath, closed the document and threw it on the table. What he wants to know is when and where the other party became a person with supernatural powers. The pile of information in front of him obviously cannot give him the answer. Plus, he can check the information anytime he wants, so there is no need to waste it here. It's time. After taking a sip of his drink, Fury said, "Tell me the good news now, so that I can take it home in a good mood before getting off work." Mei looked around and whispered, "I'm afraid you still have a long time before you get off work. I have tracked Austin's whereabouts. He is driving a RV on the road. It seems that he is preparing to leave New York." Fury stood up and motioned for Mei to leave the restaurant with him, and said, "Is this good news?" "Good news that makes me have to work overtime. By the way, you said before that you ordered fried peanuts for takeout." Seeing Mei spreading her hands and nodding, Fury, who had not yet walked out of the restaurant, suddenly said to Coulson, who was standing at the door as a doorman, "Buy me some fried peanuts, sweet and sour pork ribs and plain chicken." "Mei, I know turkey silky chicken, but what kind of chicken is white-cut chicken?" On the side, Mei, who has amazing cooking skills, said with a slightly uncertain tone, "Sir, boiled chicken is chicken cooked in boiling water." After thinking about it, Mei added, "And these dishes are all Chinese dishes." Food and drinks. Fury nodded and expressed that he couldn't understand what was so delicious about chicken cooked in boiled water. He turned to Coulson and asked, "Do you understand?" Coulson smiled and nodded and said, "Buying some beer." "Yes," Fury said to Coulson as he opened the car door and motioned for Mei to get in. He checked the pistol in the holster and said to Coulson, "I want to have a good chat with my old friend about his future life plans." May was a little confused. From Fury's words, she knew that she was going to intercept Austin, but Fury even said that he needed to keep the investigation of the other party's whereabouts confidential. What's the point of bringing her along? Could it be that Fury wanted to be a waiter by himself, or the bartender who leaves his ears at home and can only watch Fury and Austin drinking and chatting with a beer bottle? May sat in the driver's seat and started the car, and said with a faint smile, "Sir, I am an artist but not a person." Fury, who was sitting in the passenger seat, rolled his eyes at May. Of course he knew that May was joking. May was not an agent with superb skills but a simple mind. He was a well-known expert in the agency, but for safety reasons Fury still reminded, "Bullets had better be loaded, I don't want to receive any bad news again." "Bad news? Does it mean I will sacrifice?" May glanced at Fury and said seriously, "Sir, are you sure this is necessary? The surveillance footage shows that Austin is alone, and he is a man who is not strong and has a big belly. If possible, I would like to call an army for support." Fury pointed to his eye patch and sneered, "Although there are some things that I can't tell you, I remind you that you are a man with a bulging belly in your mouth." But he is well informed, he saw it with his own eyes before he became blind. May, who stepped on the accelerator, tilted her head and muttered, "I thought he blinded you. You want to take revenge on him and want me to provide military support. I have already thought about how much compensation you will need." Fury took out a folded piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out in his hand, and said casually, "Tell me how much compensation you want. This mission is a semi-public and semi-private matter. Maybe I can pay you." Quote. Although May held the steering wheel with both hands and pressed the accelerator almost to the bottom, her excellent driving skills allowed her to glance at the paper in Fury's hand. When she saw Austin's photo, Austin's Chinese name and some basic information on the paper, May was a little surprised and joked, "Sir, is this guy worthy of you carrying the information with you? Could it be that Austin stole your girlfriend?" "It would be easy to steal my girlfriend." Fury finished reading the information, put the paper back into his jacket pocket, raised his right hand to simulate firing, and said, "I paid for the bullets out of my own pocket and gave Austin one for free. Gun." May raised her eyebrows. "I'm wondering whether to get out of the car. This job is probably not easy." Fury changed to a comfortable sitting position and said, "It depends on luck. When we worked with Austin before, we got along pretty well." May narrowed her eyes. Although Fury didn't say much, May could still hear some basic information, such as Austin being a dangerous person. Fury carries Austin's information with him because Fury can't find any matching doubts in the information. This explains the problem. The person who can deal with Fury and make Fury suffer is an ordinary person shown in the information. Person. Whoever believes it is a fool. On a highway in New York. Don't ask where this is or what kind of expressway it is. Li Feng said that he didn't know. He just drove to the suburbs along the road with the least traffic. As for where he was going, he hadn't decided yet. Perhaps it is to find a place with beautiful scenery to digest the gains of these several time travels, such as practicing the spells on the Key of Solomon, or practicing the dark spells modified by the Ancient One, or finding a place with no human habitation. Interrogate the devil in the scroll to see if you can extort some of the devil's spells. Li Feng hummed a song without a note in tune, parked the RV at a gas station on the roadside, picked up the shoulder bag on the passenger seat and walked into the convenience store of the gas station. There was no way Li Feng had eaten lunch since he left the restaurant in Chinatown, and now he felt so hungry after running out of New York City. If there is no food in the convenience store here, he will open the portal to a place called Biming. There is a creature called Kun there. Li Feng thinks he can eat one at a time without seasoning. Eaten alive. Just when Li Feng entered the convenience store and ate like a hungry ghost reincarnated, May, who drove the car with a feeling of flying like an airplane, finally saw the RV stopped at the gas station. May pointed to the RV and asked, "Sir, what should we do now?" Fury pushed open the car door and pointed to the communicator in the cochlea while adjusting his collar, and said, "Be prepared in the car. If you find something is wrong, contact the Bureau immediately and ask them to send fighter jets to support. If necessary, from airstrike Austin." May was stunned for a moment, and when he took out his pistol, he said with a twitching corner of his mouth, "Sir, what you said is a bit exaggerated. Why don't you send fighter jets to support us? Fury turned his head to look at May, curled his lips and said, if necessary, please contact the tank unit. May, that's not how it works, right? It makes me feel like a world war is about to break out. Frick doesn't care what May thinks, he only knows that if Austin is really an alien, or an alien with invasion intentions, then there is really a possibility of a war, or a planet-level war, let alone tanks, and the nuclear weapons were thrown as hard as dumplings. Walking straight to the RV, Fury skillfully used a pin to open the door, got into the car and waited quietly for Li Feng to come back. At this time, the dining table in front of Li Feng was in a mess. Before leaving, Li Feng was still burping. He deliberately carried a box of canned beer back to the car, preparing to get a chicken or rabbit or something for a wild barbecue in the evening. Opening the car door, Li Feng casually threw the beer and shoulder bag on the passenger seat. Before he started the car, Li Feng felt a pistol on the back of his head. While Li Feng quietly mobilized his magic power to do protective work, he looked through the rearview mirror to see who dared to rob a mage. In the rearview mirror, Fury raised his pistol and said with a half smile, I haven't seen you for a long time, Austin. Mr. Greenskin asked me to say hello to you. Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief after knowing that it was Fury who pointed the gun at him. He stretched out his right hand and pointed his middle finger at Fury and said, please be steady with your hand. If the gun goes off, wouldn't I die unjustly? Li Feng understood that Fury was talking about the green skin to him because he was afraid that he was not the Austin he had first met. He also said with a half smile, which green skin is that in your mouth? I know many green skins. The green guy who impressed me the most was the one who used a hammer screwdriver to modify airplanes. I remember you said he was indeed engaged in scientific research. Quote. Hearing this, Fury knew that he had found the wrong person, but he did not want to put down the pistol easily. He took out the handcuffs from his waist and motioned for Li Feng to put them on himself, and said, when I asked you about your identity, I said it was not the right time. Now is the time. It's time to tell me who you are. Li Feng took the handcuffs, casually hung them on the rearview mirror, and said, you're so polite. Just come when you come. You even gave me a pair of silver bracelets, so I accepted them without mercy. Seeing Li Feng change the subject with an excuse that was so bad that he was too lazy to complain, Fury put a pistol to Li Feng's head and said, please answer my question. As for the gift, I really prepared it for you, but he is still on the way. Quote. Li Feng turned to look at Fury in surprise. He heard something just now. Suspecting that he was hallucinating, Li Feng dug his ears and said in an uncertain tone, you said you prepared a gift for me. Seeing Fury nodding, Li Feng subconsciously shook his head and said, I remember Fury is a guy who says, wanted, when he sees something good, so it's impossible to give me a gift. Who are you? Why are you pretending to be an African chief? Fury's eyes twitched. Although he knew Li Feng was joking, he didn't know why. He felt that his right hand holding the gun was out of his control. It seemed that his right hand had a mind of its own and wanted to pull the trigger. Fury gritted his teeth and said, I am Fury. Talos asked me to take him to say hello. I still can't believe it. As he spoke, Li Feng raised his head and looked at the sun in the sky through the windshield. He made sure that the sun was hanging in the west during the afternoon time, rubbed his eyes and said, or am I dreaming? It's morning now. The sun rises from the west. Through Fury's communicator, May also heard Li Feng's words. She was now sure that Fury and Austin were familiar with each other. After all, people who were not familiar with each other really didn't know the stingy character of her chief. But at the same time, she was also confused because he clearly heard Fury asking Austin what his identity would be when he arrived. What's happening here? Could it be that Austin is serving a secret force and Fury wants to find out Austin's identity? But Fury's expression when he said he was sending out fighter jets didn't look like he was joking. May felt a little headache. Although analyzing useful information from a few words was the basic operation of an agent, she said that her head hurt and she really couldn't analyze any information. Speaking of gifts, Li Feng ignored the pistol on the back of his head, pulled out a mobile USB flash drive that was suspected to have been soaked in strong acid from his shoulder bag, and said, I also have a gift for you. Fury looked at the finger-sized mobile USB flash drive in Li Feng's hand, narrowed his eyes and asked, I can't tell you, a sloppy guy also has high-tech gadgets. This can't be true. Fury pointed to the sky and said, "Bring it outside." Something. Fury knew that high-end products such as mobile USB flash drives had not been popular on the market for a long time. Anyway, he would not believe that Li Fengfang, who belonged to the Earth, was playing with high technology, so it was 80% that the alien Austin brought it from the extraterrestrial world. Private goods. Li Feng blinked inexplicably at first, then realized that, outside, refers to space, and said speechlessly, "You don't think I'm an alien, do you?" Rolling his eyes at Fury, Li Feng pinched his cheek and said, "This is skin native to the Earth. It is 100% natural, with no additives or modifications." Fury was worried that Li Feng would say random things about the Kree, so he quickly turned off the communicator in his cochlea and said, "Since you are a natural Earthling, please tell me how you returned to the ground from the Earth's orbit. Don't tell me you jumped down directly." Li Feng shrugged, threw the mobile USB flash drive in his hand to Fury, and said, "Then I'll smash it into a meat pie and steam it directly in the pot." Turning aside the communicator that was crushed by Fury, Li Feng looked at Mei, who was sitting in the car, and said, "Speaking of which, you are bold enough. As the director, you didn't let the agents come over, but came to see me in person. Should I feel lucky, or should I worry that a sniper is aiming at my head somewhere I can't see? Director, although I want to sit in the position of director, I am not yet." Fury took the USB flash drive, looked at it, and asked, "Was it soaked in sulfuric acid, or was it corroded by your bad breath when it was put in your mouth?" Li Feng scratched his head. "This thing has really been in my mouth. In order to test whether the ordinary wrapped in mana can be carried through time, is it easy for me? This is the experimental data of a certain scientific madman who resurrected a corpse. It contains instructions for full-like operation. As long as you can repair the USB flash drive, you can resurrect anyone's corpse you want, but it has some minor side effects. The resurrected corpse is similar to amnesia patients, the kind who forget whether they are male or female." Fury stared at Li Feng with one eye, shook the USB flash drive in his hand, and sneered, "If the data in this is really what you said, I'm sure you are an alien, resurrecting corpses. You might as well say what's inside this rag. The data is the secret to becoming a god. It can't be repaired anyway, so it's not up to you to say so." "Don't believe it." Li Feng ignored the pistol in Fury's hand, stood up and walked straight to the locker of the RV. Blocking Fury's sight with his body, he took out a magic book the size of a matchbox from his pocket and placed it in the locker after enlarging it. "Take it out." Turning around and walking up to Fury, Li Feng turned the magic book to the page where Frankenstein's experiment notes were recorded. He pointed at the text and said, "This is a written record. It depends on whether you can understand it." Also, Li Feng pointed at the pistol helplessly and said, "Can you stop pointing the gun at me all day long? I feel upset, okay?" Fury glanced at Li Feng. He was also a senior agent after all. He thought he could tell that Li Feng was indeed not afraid of pistols. After thinking about it, he looked at the magic book while putting away the pistol. Fury could still tell whether the experimental notes were nonsense or the content was reliable. But just after taking a look, the door of the RV was suddenly opened. Mei raised his pistol and aimed it at Li Feng. He glanced at Fury to make sure that Fury had no appearance. After being injured, he asked, "Sir, are you okay?" "It's not over yet. The African chief here just put away his gun, and another guy with a gun pointed at me appeared over there. He really thought I was easy to bully." Before Li Feng spoke, Fury looked down at the magic book, stretched out his hand to signal Mei to put away the pistol, and said in a serious tone, "Melinda, ask Coulson to bring some medical experts, the sooner the better." Mei looked at Fury in confusion. Fury usually calls himself Mei, and only calls himself Melinda during urgent or important tasks. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Mei put away her pistol, took out her mobile phone and made a call, saying, "Yes, sir." Outside the RV, after Mei hung up the phone, Fury ordered that no one could approach the RV without his permission. Mei is very curious about the relationship between Fury and Li Feng. They say they are friends. So what if Fury called for backup when he reminded that something was wrong before? It is unreasonable to say they are enemies. Didn't Fury come to see Li Feng alone? Still knowing that Li Feng was a dangerous person, he came to the meeting with only a small pistol. But curiosity is curiosity. As an agent, Mei still has the basic qualities. Standing firmly at her post, holding the gun in both hands, her eyes scanned the surrounding environment back and forth like a lioness hunting. Of course, if that erected, it would be nice if the eavesdropping ears weren't so obvious. Li Feng took a bottle of beer and took a sip from time to time. He glanced at the notes on the resurrected corpse in boredom. Fury, who was still struggling with the magic book, complained in his heart, "It's my magic book after all. You can't read it without my permission. It's weird to find content that has nothing to do with resurrecting corpses." Fury is also complaining in his heart, "It is a book that is 10 centimeters thick. Except for the content you opened, I can't even turn the pages. How dare you say that you have such unknown technology? Is it produced by the original ecology of the Earth? You might as well just say that the name of your home planet has the same name as the Earth." For a long time, Fury couldn't figure out how to open the next page. He closed the magic book and handed it to Li Feng. He picked up a bottle of beer and said, "I'm curious, where did you find these contents, or should I say this comes from you?" Fury glanced at Mei outside the car. He didn't want to let Mei know that there were aliens on Earth, so he lowered his voice and continued, "A souvenir brought from your hometown." Li Feng was a little speechless. He felt that there was something wrong with Fury's brain. Why did he think he was an alien? He didn't believe that Fury didn't look for his information after they separated last time. His information clearly stated, telling everyone in vain that he is a native of Earth. "You are either a blue-skinned or a green-skinned alien. You are a black-skinned alien." When he was debating whether to tell Fury that he was actually a mage, Li Feng suddenly realized that Fury's repeated emphasis on being an alien seemed to be a subtle way of revealing his identity. As long as he felt bored, he could just say something casually, "Fury can tell something." If he admits that he is an alien, there is nothing to say. All Fury has to consider is whether to imprison or dissect him. "If you don't admit it, then," as Fury asked, "where do these techniques for resurrecting corpses come from?" After all, there is no information about Li Feng's contact with this kind of technology in the information that Fury investigated. If Li Feng wanted to explain clearly, he would either tell the truth about the secret of his ability to time travel, or make up an excuse that would convince Fury. And it is not so easy to make up a lie that can deceive a spy chief. Thinking of this, Li Feng put down the beer in his hand and said with a smile, "Why do I feel that there is something in your words? You can hide so many questions in just one question." Fury knew in his heart that Li Feng was on guard, and it was unlikely that he would be able to ask for any useful information. However, the resurrection technology that Li Feng gave him is enough for him to digest for a while, and this also proves that Li Feng does not have any malicious intentions. Thinking of this, Fury got up and got himself a bottle of beer. After sitting back opposite Li Feng, he looked at the scenery outside the car window and asked in a low voice, "Tell me about the Kree equipment. What did you research?" Quote. Li Feng smiled and said, "Do you have an occupational disease? Whether I answer yes or I haven't researched anything, you can be sure that I have Kree equipment in my hand." "That is to say, you admitted that you took Kree equipment on the cruiser before." Fury changed into a comfortable position, crossed his legs, took a sip of beer, and asked curiously, "I was curious about you before. Will the alien weapons be sold on the black market? But after my investigation, I found that there are no suspected alien weapons on the black market." Fury pointed at the magic book that could not be opened, and said quietly, "I think you need to rely on fingerprints and passwords to open this book. I don't believe that you, the average person in the information, have this kind of technology, so I was thinking, is there a scientific research institution behind you, and you are a scientific researcher?" Li Feng shook his head and smiled. "You think I look like a scientific researcher?" Fury spread his hands. "Then how do you explain that non-scientific researchers can wander around with these materials? If they are combatants, they should be holding weapons. Only scientific researchers will take the materials and prepare to go home to continue research." Quote. Fury approached Li Feng, and Li Feng subconsciously leaned back, trying to stay away from the black face less than 20 centimeters away from him. Fury grinned and said, "Or do you have the identity of a commercial spy? This book was actually stolen from a certain laboratory, and you only unlocked the pages about the resurrected corpse. Maybe we can cooperate. Tell me about this, the source of this book. I sent my elite troops to get the password to open other pages." Li Feng scratched his eyebrows. He felt tired. Every time Fury asked a question, there was a mystery. No matter how he answered, he could find some clues from it. Just like now, Li Feng said that the magic book belongs to him, and no fingerprint or password is needed to open the book. Fury will definitely not believe it unless Li Feng explains how to open the magic book and allows him to see the contents. If the magic book is not his, how should Li Feng explain it? Did you really make yourself up to be a commercial spy? If you want to deceive people, you must first deceive yourself, especially the spy chief. Li Feng doesn't think he is so capable, so not only Fury won't believe this, but even Li Feng himself doesn't believe it. Simply, Li Feng ignored Fury's question, drank beer by himself, looked at the scenery in the distance, and used practical actions to show his attitude. Fury saw Li Feng's plan, but he was not in a hurry. After all, Li Feng was in front of him, and he believed that Li Feng could not escape. It was just that Li Feng's attitude made him a little unhappy. If it were not for the kindness shown by Li Feng before, he would have subdued Li Feng now and returned to the bureau to slowly unlock the secret of the magic book. It didn't matter if Li Feng couldn't be subdued, as he could at least get out of Li Feng's specific strength. But before that, Fury needed to confirm whether the matter of resurrecting the corpse was true. If it was true, he had to contact electronic experts and find a way to repair the broken mobile USB flash drive. If it was false, it would be as simple as subduing Li Feng and taking him away. Time passed by minute by minute. When Li Feng was about to fall asleep on the table, he vaguely heard the roar of a helicopter in the air. Fury, who had been pretending to take a nap with his eyes closed, also heard the noise of the helicopter in the air. He stood up and stretched his body while looking at Coulson, who got off the helicopter through the car window. Seeing Coulson holding a food bag and beer, Fury pushed Li Feng, who was also pretending to take a nap, and said, "The takeaway you ordered has arrived. This is the first time I have seen a helicopter delivering food. Your takeaway is worth it." Li Feng turned his head to look at the delivery man Coulson, scratched his head and asked, "Takeaway? When did I order it?" Fury opened the car door and motioned Coulson and a white man in a white coat who looked like a doctor to get in the car. He said to Li Feng, "May told me that you were originally going to enjoy a delicious lunch in the restaurant, but unfortunately there was a small accident in the restaurant, which caused your delicious lunchtime to be ruined, so I asked my capable man to help you pack a new meal." After that, Fury motioned Coulson to hand the food bag in his hand to Li Feng. Li Feng took the food bag, opened it and took a look. Then he looked at the faintly visible Mediterranean hairline on Coulson's head and said, "Thanks, man. It must be very stressful to work under this non-chief. Remember to take good care of your hair." Non-chief. Coulson glanced at Fury. No one else in this scene could be called non-chief, except Fury. But Fury was still the superior, so Coulson didn't dare to say anything more. Smiling at Li Feng to express his goodwill, Coulson pointed to the doctor and said, "Superior, this is Dr. Owen. He has a doctorate in biology and..." Fury didn't care about Owen's academic qualifications now. He just wanted to know whether Li Feng was talking nonsense about the resurrection of the corpse or it was true. If the resurrection of the corpse was true, let alone what he could gain, the zombies active in some corners of the city would be enough to keep him busy for a while. Fury interrupted Coulson's introduction. "Hello, Dr. Owen, I need your insights to help me analyze some medical knowledge." While speaking, Fury picked up the magic book on the table and prepared to open it and hand it to Owen. Unfortunately, the magic book was like a model book that could not be opened. No matter how much force Fury put in, he could not open it. Helpless, Fury could only turn his head to look at Li Feng. While signaling Li Feng to open the magic book with his eyes, he was also conveying the message of, "I am curious about how you open the book." Li Feng shrugged, indicating that he did not want to talk about the problem of what kind of pose to make when turning the book. He opened the book and handed it to Owen, indicating that Owen could sit down and read slowly. Fury didn't want Coulson to know too much for the time being, so when Li Feng opened the magic book, he blocked the book with his body, turned his back to Li Feng and faced Coulson, blinked inexplicably, and said, "You and May will take turns on guard, let May take a rest." Coulson looked at Li Feng curiously, nodded and said, "Yes, sir." Getting out of the RV, Coulson, with his back to the RV, blinked at May and said, "Hey, May, the sir asked you to take a rest." May understood what Coulson meant in a second, and said expressionlessly, "Okay, then you have worked hard, call me at any time if you need anything, I will rest in the car." After that, May deliberately walked from the back of the RV to her car. When she returned to the car, May took out a bottle of mineral water from the trunk and drank while looking at the RV. After making sure that Li Feng in the RV did not notice her, May took out a palm-sized locator from the corner of the trunk. With a bottle of mineral water, May walked towards Coulson from the back of the RV again, as if she was just going to hand the mineral water in her hand to Coulson. But when May walked to the exhaust pipe of the RV, she seemed to feel that the laces of her shoes were a little loose. She squatted down to tie her shoelaces and looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, May quickly attached the locator to the chassis of the RV, stood up and walked towards Coulson, handing him the mineral water in her hand. At first, Owen didn't care about the contents of the magic book when he took it. Doctors are high-income earners in the United States, so he has enough money to satisfy his little hobbies, such as collecting old antiques. In addition, Owen also has a cooperative relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D., and there are even more sources of antiques. So when Owen took the magic book, he judged that the pages contained the flavor of history. In addition, Coulson apparently needed a medical expert when he picked up Owen, so Owen had reason to believe that what Fury asked him to see was some medical methods in ancient times. But needless to say, what was the level of medical treatment in ancient times and what was there to see? Let's just say that due to the rapid development of science and technology in modern times, some medical concepts have been judged as ineffective treatments. Owen felt that the most reliable guesses were nothing more than some medical ideas limited by the technology of the times, unless some rich man used this antique book that could be placed in a museum to record the most advanced medical knowledge. So Owen is more interested in the magic book than the content in it. Fury saw that Owen's attention was entirely on the material of the magic book, so he had to cough dryly to remind Owen to turn his attention to the text. To Fury, who interrupted his appreciation of the antiques, Owen said that since director Alexander Pierce was interested in this mission, he would take a look at it for you. As Owen took a serious look at the content, he began to mutter words such as, "This is impossible, this is wrong." In Li Feng's eyes, Owen at this time was like a mental patient who needed to use his hands to locate the text he was reading. Fury could see that Owen's shouting could not be wrong, but the incredulous expression on his face told him that the USB flash drive given by Li Feng needed to be repaired. When night fell completely, Owen, who untied his tie and was immersed in reading, wiped the non-existent sweat from his forehead, raised his head and asked Fury for a bottle of water. After Owen drank a whole bottle of water, Fury couldn't wait to ask, "Mr. Owen, I wonder if you can replicate the experiment of resurrecting corpses." Owen looked at the magic book and sighed. Judging from the content in the book, the experiment of resurrecting the corpse has been completed, and I saw in the content that it was recorded that electric eels were used to resurrect the corpse, which shows that this experiment was some years ago. So after I finish digesting the knowledge, I can not only replicate this experiment, but also improve it in many places to make the resurrected corpse stronger. Strong. Fury narrowed his eyes and asked curiously, "How come your abilities will be enhanced after resurrection?" Owen nodded, raised his arm, motioned Fury to look at his biceps, and said, "Human muscles are controlled by the brain. Even after professional training, the brain nerves stimulate the muscles to stimulate potential. The energy to achieve greater speed and strength is only 30 to 40%, but the resurrected corpses have no brain control. They can exert 100% of their muscle strength after training." Quote. Fury subconsciously looked at Li Feng. He wanted to ask Li Feng how many supermen were resurrected in this way, where they were distributed, and whether they would have any impact on society. Li Feng saw Fury's worry and smiled. "You just like to overthink some things. I tell you clearly that no one has been resurrected so far, so you just keep it in your heart. And you remember what I said. Have you experienced any side effects of this experiment?" Fury and Owen sneered at the same time. What Fury was thinking was that since he knew the side effects of corpse resurrection, he still said that no one had been resurrected. Is it interesting? Owen knew that Li Feng was lying by reading the contents of the magic book. The contents of the book clearly told him that the doctor named Frankenstein had resurrected a corpse with fragments of internal organs. At least one. Owen was thinking about how he should report it to Pierce, while frowning and thinking about the side effects in Li Feng's mouth. At least he couldn't find a record of the side effects in the book. Maybe I should conduct the experiment secretly. Fury looked at Li Feng up and down and said, "It sounds like you don't want to spread the resurrection technology. This is resurrection. Don't you know how crazy the world will be when they know you have this technology? As long as you help them, resurrection of family members, money and status are all at your fingertips." Of course Li Feng knows how good the resurrection technology is. If nothing else, as long as he resurrects all the American presidents lying in the cemetery, not only will no one dare to control him when he urinates in the White House, but he will also urinate for Li Feng. Applause from a distance. As for these presidents having no souls and no memories, do you think Li Fengfeng should tell them? And if he says he has no soul, who would believe it? This is a world where science is prevalent, and the soul does not exist. Plus, everyone dies eventually, and when they die, they have to rely on Li Feng's technology to resurrect them. Didn't you see all the presidents crawling out of the cemetery to take family photos as a souvenir? It's strange that they dare to offend Li Feng. Now that Fury had determined that the experiment of resurrecting corpses was feasible, Li Feng didn't want outsiders to know too much about his existence. He raised his right hand with a complicated expression and lightly snapped his fingers. When Li Feng's expression changed, Fury quickly drew his gun and pointed it at Li Feng. It wasn't until he saw that Li Feng just snapped his fingers that Fury hesitated and prepared to put the gun back into the holster. There was no trace of apology on his face and he said, "I'm sorry. Not knowing your specific identity, just knowing that you can deal with the Kree elite team, makes me a little nervous." Li Feng, who had finished casting the spell, rolled his eyes and said, "Don't ask me about my identity at this time. Don't you feel my obvious kindness? You are still nervous. I think you should go see a doctor. Do you have a nervous system in your body?" After saying that, Li Feng turned to look at Owen, who was under the spell of temptation, and asked bluntly, "Mr. Owen, are you Hydra?" Fury was stunned for a moment, and just about to raise his gun and ask Li Feng about Hydra, he heard Owen say, "Yes." Maiden Fury subconsciously aimed his hand at Irving. Only then did Fury notice the motionless Irving's eyes filled with confusion and dullness. "Is this? Did you snap your fingers just now to hypnotize him?" Fury felt incredible. There was no foreplay, no tools, just a snap of his fingers, and this hypnotized an adult. So Austin was a superpower, and his ability was hypnosis, which he relied on the cruiser. Did hypnotism kill an elite Kree warrior? When Li Feng heard Owen's answer, he took a long breath and said, "Yes, hypnosis. Before, I was thinking about how I should deal with Owen if he were an ordinary person to prevent the revelation of the resurrected corpse. Now it's okay, since Mr. Owen is people from Hydra, you want to make him shut up." Fury glared at Li Feng. He had previously thought that Li Feng was an alien with all kinds of high-tech equipment, or that he had amazing strength and could easily defeat 7 or 8 strong men. He also thought that Li Feng was a person with supernatural powers, who could spit fire and so on, but he never thought that Li Feng's ability was hypnosis. Hypnosis is much more troublesome than breathing fire or something. Not only can you be controlled by Austin accidentally, but it's also really hard to determine who is controlled by him. And what's even more terrible is that Austin's ability obviously has nothing to do with resurrecting corpses. It's just that this antique-like book can also say that the resurrection of the corpse happened more than 200 years ago, but the USB flash drive is definitely a modern product, so the method of resurrecting the corpse can only be obtained by Austin from somewhere. While Li Feng's danger level continues to increase, Fury is also sorting out many questions in his mind, such as Austin's true identity, who he is working for, etc. Fury, who had already confirmed that Li Feng had been subdued and brought back to S.H.I.E.L.D. for careful interrogation, even thought that even if he assessed that Li Feng's powers would not go out of control and agreed to be released into society, who should be sent to monitor him in the future, after all, it would be a snap of his fingers. The ability to hypnotize is such a headache. Who knows whether Li Fengfang will hypnotize the supervisors? Seeing Fury handcuffing Owen with an expressionless expression, Li Feng curled his lips in disdain. He guessed what Fury had planned. After all, this guy was a ruthless person who could watch him take a shower. Fury opened the car door and was about to let Coulson take Owen, who was still in a hypnotic state, back to S.H.I.E.L.D. However, he didn't expect Li Feng to suddenly kick him out of the RV. Before Fury could take out his gun, he heard Li Feng say, I'm going to bed. I hate being watched when I'm sleeping, so please leave politely. If you have anything to say, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Also, keep the little things in your pockets safe, and don't let me look at them someday. The streets are full of amnesia patients. Fury, who was kicked, only thought about whether Li Feng was preparing to escape, just like when he disappeared inexplicably on the cruise ship. He took out his pistol and looked at Li Feng's palm with one eye, in case Li Feng suddenly snapped his fingers to hypnotize himself, and said, "Since you saved me before and we get along pretty well, as long as you come back with me, the Bureau will record your abilities in the directory and I guarantee that you will not be harmed." Ha ha, Li Feng sneered, closed the car door and said, "The sky is big and the earth is big. Sleeping is the best. If you have anything to do, let's talk about it tomorrow." After saying that, Li Feng opened the roof of the car, ignoring Fury who was still knocking on the door. Carrying 2 bottles of beer bought by Coulson and white-cut chicken with peanuts, he climbed on the roof of the car and took a leisurely bite of peanuts and chicken. Coulson glanced at Li Feng, who was sitting cross-legged on the roof of the car, and whispered to Fury, "Sir, what should we do now? Mr. Austin obviously has no malicious intent, and we cannot use deadly weapons easily." Fury yelled at Li Feng angrily, "You actually choked me while eating the food I bought, and made me only watch but not drink. Where is your conscience?" Li Feng didn't even look at Fury. He said so much just because he was afraid that I would run away and wanted to squat on the roof of the car to monitor me at close range. It's weird for me to pay attention to you. Although Fury thought he was just climbing into the RV, which was a trivial matter for him, who was so strong, but in order to prevent Li Feng from hypnotizing himself, Fury thought about it and finally let Mei drive the car in front of the RV, blocking the RV and preventing Li Feng from letting him go. Leave, wait for support to arrive later, and take Li Feng away by force. Li Feng was not stupid and would stay where he was and wait to be caught, so when Fury and Coulson were a little distance away from the RV, they quietly opened the portal. Under the disbelieving gazes of Fury and the other 3, an orange-yellow halo suddenly appeared under the RV and swallowed it up instantly. Fury looked at Li Feng who suddenly disappeared, slapped his car door fiercely, and cursed. Fury walked around the place where the RV was parked before, making sure that the RV disappeared rather than became invisible, and turned to Mei and asked, "Did you put the locator on the RV?" Mei held the tracker in her hand and operated it, saying, "Of course." After a while, Fury and Coulson watched Mei pat the instrument with a puzzled look on her face, muttering, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Fury walked to Mei, looked at the longitude dimension marked on the instrument, and said with a glare, "Afghanistan. You're not going to tell me that Austin, who was just in front of us, suddenly disappeared and appeared in Afghanistan?" Mei said with a helpless look, "Sir, I can only tell you that I am very sure that the locator is installed on the RV. Either the tracker is broken, or did Austin really go to Afghanistan?" Quote. On the side, Coulson hesitated and said, "Sir, do you remember when we escorted the superpower with bones on his back during the day? He also disappeared suddenly. Do you think it was Mr. Austin who did it?" Fury pondered for a while, shook his head and said, "I hope it wasn't him, otherwise I won't send fried peanuts next time we meet, but metal peanuts." Looking at the disappearing RV, Fury fiddled with the USB flash drive in his pocket with one hand, rubbed his eyebrows with the other hand and asked, "Contact the logistics department and ask them to send someone to see what method Austin used to disappear." While dialing the phone number of S.H.I.E.L.D., Coulson laughed and said, "It looks like a time-space wormhole has been opened." Can you still laugh? Fury is in a terrible mood now. Putting Austin aside, the resurrection of the corpse and Owen being a Hydra are enough to make him distressed. Fury took out the USB flash drive from his pocket, and while handing it to Coulson, he stared into Coulson's eyes and said, "Repair this thing. Remember, no one can view the contents inside. This is level 10 confidential information." Coulson was stunned for a moment, and after taking the USB flash drive, he nodded solemnly and said, "Yes, sir." Mei looked at the USB flash drive curiously, wondering if this thing was given to Fury by Austin, and where Austin was. Anyway, she didn't believe that someone could suddenly run from the United States to Afghanistan in the blink of an eye. As for Li Feng, his head was buzzing and he was lying on the roof of the RV surrounded by deserts to bask in the sun. As Li Feng, who knew only a little about geography, it took him a long time to remember that he had forgotten that there was a time difference between Afghanistan and the United States. It was dark in New York, but it was still morning in Afghanistan. After drinking the beer in his hand in one gulp, Li Feng casually threw the bottle on the desert, turned over and got into the RV, picked up the map and prepared to find a beautiful place to organize his own spells. After a long time, Li Feng pointed at the address on the map and thought silently. Portland belongs to the western United States, near the estuary where the Willamette River joins the Columbia River. Because it is close to the Pacific Ocean, it has an oceanic climate, and winter is more humid than summer. Because this climate is more suitable for growing roses, there are many rose plantations in the city, and Portland is also called the City of Roses. Finding a seaside with fewer people in Portland is the ideal place for me to practice magic. However, before leaving Afghanistan, Li Feng knocked around the RV while sending out his mental power. I have to check the RV carefully. After all, it is always uneasy if I don't check the place where the agent chief has stayed. Soon, Li Feng found the locator hidden under the rear of the car and threw it aside. He whistled and boarded the RV, opened the portal to Portland, and after a step on the accelerator, Li Feng had arrived in Portland. With the portal, traveling is so convenient. A day later, an armed helicopter appeared in the sky above the desert and circled around the locator. Coulson got off the helicopter with a tracker and walked straight to the locator. While picking up the locator, Coulson also noticed the bottle of wine on the ground in the distance. Coulson squatted beside the bottle in confusion and looked at it. Li Feng drank the wine he bought at the beginning. Naturally, Coulson recognized that it was the beer he bought. After thinking about it, Coulson carefully put the beer bottle into the evidence bag. He wanted to take it back for testing to see if the fingerprints on it were Li Feng's. Although the appearance of the locator has proved that Li Feng did suddenly run from the United States to Afghanistan, Coulson still couldn't believe it. If Li Feng's fingerprints could also be collected on the beer bottle, Coulson said that they would be in big trouble. A person with superpowers who can hypnotize and run around the world, let alone arrest, even monitoring can't be done. Portland, a seaside with piles of rocks and no people. Li Feng parked the RV in the bushes and made a simple camouflage. First, he stood on the roof of the car and looked around to make sure that there was no one around. Then, carrying the spell scroll given by Leonore and the devil spell modified by Ji Yuyi, he walked straight into the dense forest and opened the mirror space to practice spells. It is not easy to pry the spell out of the devil's mouth. Even if Li Feng believes that he has the angel feather that can restrain the devil, he still needs to be careful at all times. Therefore, before unlocking the devil's seal, Li Feng must first understand the devil's spells and learn the spells to restrain the devil. And this learning took more than half a year. In the mirror space, after half a year of understanding and practice, Li Feng, who believes that he has mastered the spell to restrain the devil, carefully spread the scroll that sealed the devil on the ground, holding the wooden box with the pseudo-angel feather given by Leonore in one hand, while unlocking the seal on the scroll. The old man devil had just been freed from the seal, and couldn't wait to sense the existence of hell in order to recover some strength. Unfortunately, the planes are different. Let's not talk about whether he can sense hell. Even if he senses Duyu, it is different from his hometown in his impression. Moreover, with his current strength, it is strange that he can sense hell in the mirror space. Li Feng bumped the wooden box, looked at the confused devil with a smile, and said, "Old man, don't be busy contacting hell. How about chatting with me to relieve your boredom?" The devil looked at the space crystal walls around him that looked like uneven glass, then looked at his severed hands and feet, and understood that he could not escape for the time being. And he also understood that since the mage on the opposite side chose to seal himself instead of killing him on the spot like a demon hunter, this meant that the mage had something to ask for. Whether the mage wanted to get information about hell or something, this was what kept him alive. The capital to escape. Thinking of this, the devil thought about what Li Feng wanted from him, and said, "The devil's name is very long. I won't tell you the full name. You can call me Dobby." "Dear mage, what is your name?" Although in Demon Slayer Warrior, devils fight with fists, it does not mean that devils cannot use spells. Li Feng is not sure whether the devil in front of him will secretly cast spells after knowing his birth date and name. Curse spells. Just in case, Li Feng decided to make up a name. "My name is Jerry." Dobby smiled and said, Master Jerry, I wonder what your orders are. As he spoke, Dobby wanted to sit up while secretly summoning up the little mana in his body. However, with his hands and feet broken, he couldn't sit up even with all his strength. He could only say helplessly, Can you help me? I can't help you. It's already a sin for you to salute, and it's even more impolite to talk to you while lying down. I'm also a well-mannered devil. Li Feng couldn't play tricks with the mirror space like Ji Yuyi, but he could still control every move in the mirror space, so when the devil pretended to want to sit up but couldn't, Li Feng had already discovered the mana fluctuations in the devil's body. Pouring his lips, Li Feng opened the wooden box and sneered, What? You haven't given up now, and are you thinking about how to escape? You want me to cast a spell on me after I get close to you? The moment Li Feng opened the wooden box, Dobby had already felt the energy that restrained him. The energy emitted from the pseudo-angel feathers was like strong acid, corroding his body quickly. Bai Duo rolled on the ground in pain and stayed away from Li Feng, who was approaching him. It seemed that doing so would relieve the pain. He wailed, Jerry, my friend, don't come over. Please, don't. Li Feng, who was holding the wooden box, glanced at the fake angel feathers and scratched his head. Why does Dobby look like a little girl about to be violated? Isn't this a bit exaggerated? I don't know why, but I suddenly like to hear you wailing. It would be better if it was louder. Thinking of this, Li Feng walked into Dobby, who was rolling around, and said, Now, are you still thinking about how to leave? No, I don't dare anymore. Dobby, who had rolled to the edge of the mirror space, said with his voice as if it had been cooked by boiling water, Master, I am willing to surrender to you and swear to be your servant. All I ask is that you give me take away the wooden box. Is there any loyalty to the devil's surrender? So Li Feng directly regarded Dobby's oath as a smelly fart, but Li Feng still closed the wooden box and restrained the energy emitted by the feathers. He wanted the devil's spell, and how could the dead Dobby introduce the spell? Li Feng looked at Dobby, who was covered in burns and gasping for air, and said with a pout, How can you guarantee your loyalty? Imprisonment spells. Dobby looked at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand with fearful eyes and said, I know a kind of slave contract. After signing the contract, as long as you have a thought, my soul will be burned clean by hellfire. Quote. Li Feng's eyes lit up, and he quickly took out a blank scroll and pen, threw it to Dobby, and said, Now, record the spells you know on the scroll. Remember, it is all the spells. Dobby looked at Li Feng in confusion, raised his crippled hands, and said with trembling lips, Master, what do you want me to write? How about you bring me your energy and let me repair the broken limbs, or... I said you record spells. Without the teachings of Ancient One, Li Feng might have foolishly asked Dobby to recite and record the spells himself, but now. Write your own spells. Li Feng only knew that the devil had a contract, but he didn't know how to operate it specifically. What if Dobby was talking about some kind of contract, and Li Feng stupidly wrote it? Wouldn't the contract be completed? Who will be the master and who will be the servant then? As for Li Feng learning spells from the plague devil before, in the words of Ji Yuyi, he is destined to have great fortune. If the plague devil were smarter and shifted its focus from the Key of Solomon to Li Feng, he could just do it in the spells he taught. If you click on the ghost, Li Feng may have been possessed by the other party. Chapter 51. Regarding Dobby's suggestion of repairing the broken limb, Li Feng said that after transmitting his dark mana to Dobby, he would indeed be able to repair the broken hand. But in this way, wouldn't his mana attributes and characteristics be exposed to Dobby? If Dobby still has some hidden cards, Li Feng will be even more in danger. After thinking about it, Li Feng pretended to open the wooden box and threatened, What nonsense, write with a pen in your mouth. Otherwise don't blame me for being rude, don't think that you are the only devil in the world, at worst I will replace you with a servant. Quote. Dobby was a little confused. Write spells with your mouth. What is this operation? Among the humans who faced the devil, he had seen those who thought they were smart and could control the devil, and he had also seen those who were cautious, but he had never seen someone like Li Feng who was so cautious that he didn't even dare to copy spells. Facing the human mage who is so wary of me, the success rate of my escape plan is constantly declining. Seeing that Li Feng was about to open the wooden box and release the energy that was like sulfuric acid to him, Dobby, who was extremely depressed, could only hold his pen tightly and struggled to write the slave contract spell. Li Feng saw that Dobby's handwriting was worse than his own. He was secretly happy at the same time. He took out the compressed biscuit from his pocket and ate it happily. He decided that as long as people in the future laughed at his handwriting, it was as ugly as an insect crawling over it. He took out the scroll written by Dobby and showed the other party what the real worm-like writing was. I believe the other party will bow to me and apologize. Dobby has many more spells than the Plague Devil. In this regard, Li Feng can only say that Dobby is worthy of being a scientific research talent who can understand resurrection experiments, and is a subordinate whom Nobilis deeply trusts and favors. But there are as many thoughts as spells. Occasionally glancing at the spell scroll recorded by Dobby, Li Feng sneered and pointed out a few wrong ways of casting spells. While showing Dobby that he was proficient in devil spells, he also opened the wooden box and listened to a paragraph with pseudo-angel feathers. Bai's wail. It wasn't until Dobby took his last breath that Li Feng put up a shield to prevent the irritating odor emitted by the devil after being injured by the pseudo-angel feathers from getting into his brain and irritating his brain unnecessarily. A surprise attack. I saw Li Feng squatting in front of Dobby and sneered, "Do you think I don't understand the devil's magic at all?" As he spoke, Li Fengchuo raised his right hand, and a green flame suddenly rose from his palm. With just one glance, Dobby was sure that this miserable green flame was the Plague Devil's unique flame, the Plague Flame. This flame, in addition to burning, can also spread like a plague. It can truly be a spark that ignites the entire grassland, and it is the kind that cannot be extinguished by ordinary water. 2 seconds later, Li Feng took a deep breath to express his anger, and said viciously, "Hurry up and write me the correct spell." In fact, Li Feng could only control the plague flame for 2 seconds. He took a deep breath because he was mentally exhausted after casting the spell and needed to take a big breath. But Dobby didn't know all this. He only knew that Li Feng did know some devil spells. If every spell contained a trap, Li Feng would definitely notice it, and another torture would be inevitable. If there were just a few spells interspersed with traps, it would indeed be difficult for Li Feng to discover them, but the problem was that Dobby didn't know which devil spells Li Feng knew. Could he remove the traps from each spell and really teach Li Feng the devil spells honestly? The only thing that is certain is that Li Feng does not know the slave contract spell. Maybe this is an opportunity. Before coming up with a specific way to escape, Dobby reluctantly accepted his short-term fate of becoming a servant, thinking that as long as he left this space covered by glass, he would immediately return to hell, ending his fate as a servant and waiting for the next time. Make a comeback. As for the constraints of the slave contract, do you think Dobby will truly explain it clearly? Most of the devil's spells have something in common, so Dobby was not sure whether Li Feng could see the trap of the slave contract. In the end, after Dobby thought a lot, he taught Li Feng a spell with many loopholes. These loopholes do not affect Li Feng's control of Dobby, but similarly, Dobby can rely on these loopholes to break away from Li Feng's control at any time. The only thing Dobby didn't expect was that Li Feng had no intention of letting him leave the mirror space. In the next 3 days, Dobby felt that his whole body was useless, especially the mouth holding the pen in his mouth. He had completely lost consciousness. Fortunately, he had recorded all the spells he knew on several scrolls. This kind of hard life was terrible. It's a fall back. Putting down the pen in his mouth, Dobby looked at Li Feng, who was squatting in a corner of the mirror space, studying the slave contract, and then looked at the wooden box in Li Feng's hand with a vague look of hatred, and said, "My respected Master Jerry, I have recorded all the spells. Look, do you want to cast a slave contract spell on me?" Li Feng looked up at Dobby, then looked at the scroll on the ground, grinned and said, "You want to leave the mirror space?" Dobby said without hesitation, "My respected master, as long as you perform a slave contract on me, I will be your most loyal servant. How can a noble person like you not have a caring servant by your side? Please, allow me to be by your side and serve you, this is my humble wish." Li Feng. To be honest, after listening to Dobby's words, Li Feng only felt that this guy was a talent, and the horse was so comfortable to shoot. Li Feng grabbed the wooden box, stood up with a smile, walked to Dobby, pulled out his long knife and flattened the scroll for inspection. Dobby had seen Li Feng flipping the scroll with a long knife many times in the past 3 days. He knew that this was Li Feng's way of preventing him from tampering with the scroll, so he didn't dare to touch the scroll directly with his hands. "But aren't you too cautious?" Before Dobby finished his complaints, Li Feng chopped off Dobby's head with a knife. From beginning to end, Li Feng had never thought of making Dobby his servant, let alone letting Dobby go. Since he had already got what he wanted, what reason did Li Feng have to let Dobby live in this world? Watching a ball of fire burst out of Dobby's body, Li Feng grinned and sneered as he recited a spell to completely destroy the devil. Until the soul fireball representing Dobby gradually shrank and finally extinguished, Li Feng bent down to pick up the scroll on the ground, raised his hand to open the portal and leave the mirror space. Back in the real world, Li Feng threw the scroll and other items into the RV, immediately took off his clothes facing the sea, stretched his waist and did warm-up exercises before swimming. In the past 3 days, Li Feng had been eating all kinds of canned food and compressed biscuits every day, and his mouth was almost dry. Not to mention studying various spells and exercising in the mirror space, which made his body sticky. The most important thing was that Dobby's devilish stench seriously polluted the air in the mirror space. If he stayed in the mirror space for a few more days, Li Feng said that he would be suffocated by the sweat odor on his body. After washing it with seawater, Li Feng returned to the RV and washed it again with fresh water, put on dry clothes, and drove to a small town after half an hour. In the town, Li Feng greeted the residents familiarly. In the past 6 months, Li Feng would go to the town to relax every time he finished practicing spells. In this way, he naturally got familiar with the residents of the town. The residents of the town also knew this weirdo who drove an RV and liked to live on the uninhabited rocky beach. They said Li Feng was weird because they were curious about what kind of job he did. You know, there was no job to do near the rocky beach. Li Feng, who had no income from work, would buy a lot of canned food and compressed biscuits that could be stored for a long time every time he went to a convenience store. As usual, Li Feng parked his RV in front of a store on the 2nd floor. The first floor was converted into a convenience store. He picked up his shoulder bag that was bulging with too many spell scrolls and walked into the convenience store. Seeing that there was no one at the cash register, Li Feng shouted, "Robert, business is here. 2 boxes of compressed biscuits, 2 bags of flour, and various canned fruits and luncheon meat." A burly but kind-looking middle-aged uncle poked his head out from behind the goods shelf and rolled his eyes and said, "Calculate the time, you should have finished the compressed biscuits last time." As he spoke, Robert led a slightly shy, mixed-race girl about 10 years old out of the goods shelf. Robert pushed the little girl in front of him, rubbed her hair, and said with a smile, "This is the little girl I adopted last month. Isn't she pretty?" Li Feng raised his eyebrows and said, "If you want to make me want a daughter, then you succeeded, but if you continue to promote your niece to be my girlfriend, no deal." This is not the first time that Robert has promoted his niece to Li Feng, which made Li Feng speechless. Isn't it said that the United States is a country that loves freedom, shouting the slogan of free love every day? When will marriage introduction become popular? He also introduced me to a girlfriend without knowing me at all. How courageous. Although I haven't seen your niece who is so ugly that she needs to rely on promotion to find a boyfriend, but just the fact that your niece is called Natasha is enough to scare me. Also, I have never thought about starting a family in the Marvel world, so you'd better save your saliva about dating your niece. Li Feng half knelt in front of the girl, showing what he thought was the kindest smile, and said, "Little sister, what's your name?" The little girl looked at Robert timidly, and after receiving Robert's encouraging eyes, she twisted her body. She looked up at Li Feng and whispered, "Sky." Sky. Li Feng felt that the name sounded familiar, but he didn't think much about it. He smiled and picked up an interior decoration from the cargo rack, a Hawaiian doll wearing a green grass skirt and dancing, and said, "For you." Sky looked up at Robert hopefully, and only took the doll with a smile until Robert nodded, and said to Li Feng, "This is the first time I have received a gift, I like it very much, thank you uncle." Li Feng stood up and rubbed Sky's hair, motioning Robert to give himself. He moved the items he needed to buy to the RV, pointed to the bar next door, and said, "I've been busy for so long, I need to relax." Robert rolled his eyes, rolled up his sleeves and walked to the warehouse to move out the various dry food that Li Feng wanted, and laughed and scolded, "You are the only one who stays on that deserted rocky beach all day. Are you busy watching the sunrise or the sunset? I think you are just idle all day. Finding a job and starting a family is the most important thing." Li Feng ignored Robert's laughter and scolding, said goodbye to Sky, and walked straight to the bar. Just after Li Feng walked into the bar, Robert put some canned biscuits and other dry food in the RV. Taking the opportunity to put the dry food, Robert looked up and down in the RV with a patrolling look, and even hurriedly opened the locker to look for something. After a while, Robert got off the RV without finding anything, glanced at the bar, and while inferring whether Li Feng would leave the town in the short term, he hurriedly ran into his own convenience store warehouse. In the warehouse, Robert pushed aside a pile of messy cartons in the corner, opened the small secret door on the wall, picked up the secret line phone in the secret door, dialed a few numbers, and when a female voice came from the microphone, he said, "I am Robert. Austin went to the town to buy supplies as expected." On the other end of the phone, the woman said in an inaudible voice, "Okay, I will try to get to the scene within half a day. You try to delay Austin while ensuring your own safety. By the way, did you find any special equipment in his car?" Robert smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, are you sure Austin has special equipment in his car? Since I was ordered to move to the town to open a convenience store, I have checked his car 3 times, but I didn't find anything. Unless you give me a chance to disassemble the RV into parts for inspection, I can't find any special equipment. Also, I am familiar with that guy, but I am not familiar enough to delay him for half a day." Unfortunately, before Robert finished speaking, a busy tone came from the other end of the phone. Robert put down the phone slowly and covered the secret door with a cardboard box again. When he walked out of the warehouse, Robert rubbed his depressed face to make it look kind, thinking about how to hold Li Feng back without making Li Feng suspicious. At the same time, Robert was also very curious about who Li Feng was. When he received the task from S.H.I.E.L.D. to open a convenience store in the town, he only knew that Li Feng was a dangerous person and carried a special device that S.H.I.E.L.D. coveted in his car. But due to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s hierarchical management system, he still didn't know where the kind Li Feng was dangerous, nor could he see what device was on the slightly luxurious RV. He only knew that every time he came into contact with Li Feng, he had to write a bunch of assessment reports on Li Feng's character, and S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately sent a bunch of logistics personnel to do various examinations on himself, especially psychological assessments and hypnosis treatments, which he felt that he had experienced so many times of hypnosis and questioning, and his mind had been sublimated, and he could ignore any hypnosis methods. This also made him wonder if Li Feng was some kind of humanoid self-propelled hypnotist. After contacting him, his brain would mutate, such as becoming stupid or becoming a dementia patient. Otherwise, why would the Bureau always hypnotize him to get him to tell stories? Walking to the door, Robert glanced at Sky, who was sitting obediently at the door of the convenience store. An idea came to his mind, but Austin is really a dangerous person. Will Sky be in danger after contacting him? Robert was still struggling with whether to use Sky as an excuse to hold Li Feng back. Li Feng, who was sitting at the bar, felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the bar. It was not night time, so Li Feng understood that there was no one in the bar and he was the only customer there. But what did it mean to smell a faint smell of bleach? Was the bar cleaning and disinfecting? The question was, in addition to the smell of bleach, how to explain the bloody smell. Was the bar owner Hank killing chickens and cooking? I haven't heard that Americans would kill chickens themselves. Aren't the ones sold in supermarkets all killed and cleaned? Could it be that Hank bought chickens from the farm today and killed them for dinner himself? Li Feng knocked on the bar and shouted to the kitchen door behind the bar, "Hank, come out to meet the guests." At this time, a man with messy hair, rolled up sleeves, and a little blood on his collar pushed open the kitchen door and walked to Li Feng, smiling and saying, "My name is Calvin, I am Hank's friend. He is out for something and will be back in the evening. Do you need me to convey anything?" Li Feng noticed that the veins on the neck of this homeless Calvin were bulging, as if he had just used stimulants in the kitchen, with an excited expression on his face. And as Calvin opened the kitchen door, Li Feng could clearly feel the bloody smell coming. Frowning, Li Feng gently cast a spell with his right hand and brushed his eyes. This is a spell that he improved after studying the notes given to him by Mordo for half a year and getting inspiration. Li Feng called it Dharma Eye. The only function of this spell is to see the spirit of a creature. Originally, Li Feng envisioned that the Dharma Eye was mainly to identify whether a human was possessed by a demon, but after completing the Dharma Eye, he found that this spell could not only identify the demons hidden in the crowd, but also, as now, he could see that Calvin's spirit was a little incomplete, and thus inferred that Calvin had a brain disease, that is, the legendary mentally ill patient who could kill people without breaking the law. Li Feng turned his head and looked at the kitchen. Through the Dharma eye, he clearly saw a human spirit lying on the ground and slowly dissipating in the air. Needless to say, the person lying on the ground was the bar owner Hank. Li Feng was a little entangled. He thought, I don't know and don't care whether American law should shoot a mentally ill person after killing someone. I just want to know if I will go to jail after killing a mentally ill murderer. Calvin looked down at the blood stains on his body, and then followed Li Feng's gaze to the kitchen. Calvin seemed to see Li Feng's curiosity about the kitchen. He smiled and motioned for Li Feng to enter the kitchen, pointed to the blood stains on his collar and said, You don't think I'm killing people, do you? Although I look like a murderer, the blood on my body is cow blood. Before Hank left, he asked me to cut the freshly thawed beef shank in the kitchen into small pieces, but I clumsily cut it into small pieces. The kitchen is a mess, can you help me? I'll buy you a drink then. Your sister is an ox-blooded person. I am still blind or stupid. Li Feng stood up with a smile and was about to leave the bar. He had decided not to kill a mentally ill person because he couldn't do it. Li Feng's name has been registered with S.H.I.E.L.D. Once he kills someone, the S.H.I.E.L.D. people will be alerted. At that time, he will have no choice but to leave Portland and find another place to practice magic. Secondly, Hank was dead a long time ago, and his relationship with Hank was not good enough to avenge him regardless of his identity being exposed. After leaving the bar, Wei Wei anonymously called the police and asked the police to deal with the mentally ill to avenge Hank. Calvin kept smiling and watched Li Feng walk out of the bar motionlessly, then turned back to the kitchen to dispose of Hank's body. After simply dragging Hank into the freezer and hiding it, Calvin stood at the window, his hands subconsciously pinching the corners of his clothes due to nervousness, and looked at sky in the distance through the window with a happy face. As soon as Li Feng walked out of the bar, he heard Robert say to Li Feng anxiously, Austin, can you help me look at the convenience store? I have an urgent matter and I will go out for half a day. Li Feng walked towards the public phone booth on the roadside, waved his hand and said, Isn't it enough to close the convenience store? Will you still starve to death if the convenience store is closed for half a day? Robert glanced at Sky and thought, since this can't keep Austin, this is the only way. Gritting his teeth, Robert walked up to Li Feng and said, The problem is that I can't take Sky away, but I don't trust her to stay alone in the convenience store. Li Feng turned to look at Sky, frowned and said, What happened? You are in such a hurry to leave. Robert pretended to be anxious and said, My wife had a car accident and is being rescued in the hospital. As you know, I took Sky with me without leaving the environment in the rescue room. I was afraid that she would be frightened when she saw the body or something. Negative. Li Feng thought for a while and felt that he had nothing to do, so he might as well help Robert look after the child. He was saying that although Sky was a little shy, she was quite cute. Thinking of this, Li Feng nodded and said, Okay, but I won't help you. Looking at the convenience store, I will take Sky around in the RV and let Sky get familiar with the environment of the town. Quote. Hearing Li Feng's words, Robert secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, Sky doesn't know yet that I'm leaving for a long time. I'll go discuss it with her. After saying that, Robert walked up to Sky and whispered something. Judging from the fact that Robert had dared to introduce girlfriends to him without knowing much about her in the past, Li Feng felt that Robert was the kind of person who was so timid that he didn't care about Robert's adopted daughter being left in his care for a period of time. After making the call to the police, Li Feng frowned and walked to Sky. For some reason, he always felt that someone nearby was secretly observing him. Robert half crouched in front of Sky and said apologetically, Little Sky, Uncle Austin will take you around the town, you have to be good, I will be back in half a day, and I will treat you to something delicious. Quote. Sky nodded obediently, followed Li Feng with the gift Li Feng gave her, and got into the RV. The scene where Robert handed Sky over to Li Feng was clearly seen by Calvin, who was hiding by the window of the bar. His fists with bulging veins showed that he was very angry now. It wasn't until Li Feng drove the RV slowly away from the convenience store that Calvin, who couldn't see Sky's figure, reluctantly looked back. After smashing a lot in the bar as if to vent, he took out the scalpel from his pocket and walked straight to the car he had just gotten into, preparing to. As Robert drove away from the convenience store, he said with a smile, "Hello, I have something to ask you for help." Robert didn't think much. He rolled down the window and was about to ask, "What help do you need?" Calvin reached out and grabbed Robert's hair, and used the surgical instrument in his hand to slit Robert's trachea and arteries. Robert held the gushing wound and looked at Calvin with wide eyes, as if he wanted to know why Calvin wanted to kill him. Calvin pushed Robert back into the car and said with a ferocious smile, "I know who you are. You are the murderers who stole my daughter. You are the ones who tore my originally happy home into pieces." After saying that, Calvin looked at the direction where Sky disappeared with a desolate expression, and muttered, "Daisy, my dear daughter, after I finish dealing with these people who are spying on you, I will come to pick you up home." Just as Li Feng was taking Sky around the town, a plane full of technology was on its way to the town. In the plane, Natasha, who had short burgundy hair, was looking down at a piece of information about Li Feng. Originally, this mission had nothing to do with Natasha, but Fury considered that Li Feng had no record of hurting anyone, so he ordered Natasha to come and arrest him. Natasha was very confused when she received the mission. It was just to arrest one person. Do all the agents in the agency work for a living? Why should she find time to go on missions? It wasn't until she saw from the intelligence that Austin's power was hypnosis and that he had a device that was suspected of opening a wormhole, that Natasha understood why Fury wanted her to take over the mission. The mission this time was mainly about arresting people. Without the use of lethal weapons, it would be nice if ordinary agents could not be hypnotized when they approached Li Feng. As for the use of remote anesthesia guns and other equipment, Fury was not sure how many measures could be used to charm Li Feng. So this terrible anesthetic dosage bothered Fury. After all, in Fury's eyes, Li Feng was a person with special abilities. The physical fitness of people with special abilities was generally higher than that of ordinary people, but how much higher it was needed to be verified. What if the amount of anesthetic is too low and Li Feng still has the strength to activate the wormhole device and run away? They were not sure when and where they would find Li Feng next time. If the amount of anesthetic was too high and Li Feng was shot on the spot, this would be inconsistent with Fury's original intention. He also wanted to recruit Li Feng to S.H.I.E.L.D. In the end, Fury felt that if he wanted to capture Li Feng alive, he could only send an agent who could withstand hypnosis. And because such advanced technology as wormholes needed to be kept secret, the level of the agent sent should not be too low. After thinking about it, Fury could only put his mind on Natasha. She was born as a spy and was very resistant to hypnosis. With her enhanced body, Fury had reason to believe that Li Feng could not be hypnotized. Natasha. As for how Natasha subdues Li Feng, this is not within the scope of Fury's consideration. What he should consider is what method should be used to treat Li Feng's inner shadow after Natasha escorts Li Feng if he resists. In addition, Natasha's agent level is not low, so she can understand the technology of wormholes and believe that she can keep it secret. On the plane, Natasha opened the report on Li Feng's evaluation and saw that Li Feng liked to stay in the RV and live on the deserted rocky beach. Natasha curled her lips and muttered, "Is it because he likes to live in no man's land because of his withdrawn personality, or because Austin knows that he cannot control his hypnotic powers and is afraid that he may inadvertently hypnotize residents and hurt innocent people? Considering that a home like an RV can be moved at any time, I prefer that Li Feng is a withdrawn person who is not good at communicating with others and likes to be at home all over the world. However, it is also this kind of character that is disconnected from society and likes to live in his own world, which leads him to for human society, the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, because as long as someone angers Austin, this guy will most likely take revenge regardless of his powers." Quote, "The biggest headache is where he got the equipment to open wormholes. Is there such a powerful laboratory on Earth? His ability to not open wormholes must be his, right? That's not right. At least I haven't heard of people with supernatural powers mastering to above ability." After putting down the information, Natasha felt a little headache. Judging from all the signs, it was strange that Austin didn't resist when he was being hunted by her. After taking Sky slowly around the town for a few times, Li Feng called Ha Che to park the RV on the side of the road, took out a bag of potato chips from the locker and threw it to Sky, while reaching out to prepare to turn over the RV. the bed on the wall, he said, "Are you sleepy? Do you have the habit of taking a nap?" Sky glanced at the bed, feeling a little nervous in her heart, fearing that Li Feng was a guy with a beastly face. While looking out the car window for passers-by, she shook her head and said, "Thank you, uncle, I don't want to sleep." Li Feng thought for a while, took out the game console from the corner and handed it to Sky, saying, "I'm a little sleepy, let me take a nap. If you're bored, you can play some games. The snacks are in the locker. What do you want to eat? Get it yourself. You can treat my RV as your own home, as long as you don't tear down my home, you can do whatever you want." Li Feng didn't know how tempting the word, home, in his mouth was to Sky. Ever since Sky could remember, she had been changing adoptive parents. Sometimes she would be forced to leave in a few days, sometimes in a few months. The adoptive parents' home she had just become familiar with made her feel like an unwanted child. Sky played the game absent-mindedly, quietly looking at the sleeping Li Feng from time to time. After a while, Sky, who had no intention of playing games, got up and rummaged around in the RV. From time to time, she imagined how great it would be to have a RV that could protect her from wind and rain. Even if one day the whole world no longer wanted her, she will also have a car of her own. Li Feng didn't know that because of his unintentional words, Shockwave, who lived in a van in the future and hacked into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s database with a laptop, was driving a second-hand car when she was caught by Coulson. Traveling everywhere in an RV. I don't know how Sky in the future transformed into Shockwave Girl, driving the same RV that Li Feng has now, and Li Feng's expression when he called Uncle Li Feng. On the other side, a high-tech plane landed on the outskirts of the town. After checking the equipment she carried, Natasha stepped off the plane in casual clothes with an expression of, "I'm on vacation." She hadn't reached Robert's convenience store yet, and as if she was curious about the town, Natasha, who was looking around, frowned and looked at the police car in the distance. Feeling that something was wrong, Natasha sat in a cafe as if she was tired from walking. After ordering a cup of coffee, she deliberately lowered her collar and curiously asked the waiter, "Did something happen in this small town? I saw a lot of police cars. I came here to relax and I didn't want anything to ruin my travel plans." The waiter looked at the police car in the distance, and then at Natasha, who looked curious. Perhaps it was the effect of the beauty's aura. The male waiter looked at Natasha's collar in a vague way, and whispered, "It seems to be a little girl. A perverted murderer appeared in the town and killed the bar owner and convenience store owner in one day. If you are afraid, I can protect you." After saying that, the male waiter winked and embroidered his muscles, showing that he was caring and strong and could give Natasha a sense of security. Does Natasha need protection? No more fun. Natasha stood up suddenly, pretending to suddenly remember something, said goodbye to the waiter with a smile and hurriedly left the cafe. Walking to a corner, Natasha took out her mobile phone and dialed a number. After Fury's voice came through the phone, she said, "Sir, Robert has been killed. Should the mission continue?" On the other end of the phone, Fury's voice was heard typing on the computer, and he said in a slightly surprised tone, "Change of tasks, priority is to ensure the safety of Robert's adopted daughter, and find out who did it while ensuring the safety of the little girl. It is necessary when you ask Austin to help, just say you are mine. What did you find out? Ignore people with supernatural powers and suspected wormholes, and prioritize protecting the little girl." With some uncertainty, Natasha asked, "Sir, are you really talking about the adopted daughter and not Robert's family? Or is there something special about this adopted daughter?" Fury, who was sitting in front of the computer, stared at the Sky information he had just found. He took a deep breath and then said quietly, "Natasha, knowing too much about some things is not good." In fact, Fury didn't even know why Sky's information appeared in the S.H.I.E.L.D. database. He asked Natasha to change the mission completely out of intuition. Natasha shrugged and said, "Okay, I still understand hierarchical management. It seems that my level is not enough. You are the commander and you make the decision. The mission is changed to protecting Robert's adopted daughter." After saying that, Natasha put down the phone, took out her shield ID, and walked towards the police surrounding Robert's car. The prerequisite for protecting Sky was to find Sky. Is there any way to find Sky faster than asking the police? "Where's Sky?" Walking to the police, Natasha announced a string of unit names that made the police feel dizzy. She looked at Robert lying in the car and asked, "Did you see a little girl when you came here?" The policeman returned the shield certificate to Natasha and said, "Are you asking about the little girl Robert just adopted? Someone saw her getting into the car of the weirdo driving the RV." RV weirdo. Natasha was stunned, and then thought that the police were referring to Austin. Suddenly, Natasha felt that something was wrong and asked, "Are you sure Robert was not killed by the RV weirdo?" The policeman smiled, pointed to the camera at the door of the convenience store and said, "We are sure that Robert was not killed by the RV weirdo because it captured the murderer. As for Hank, it seems that like Robert, his neck was stabbed with a sharp edge. The knife cut off the artery and died. It was probably the same murderer. Moreover, some people saw the RV weirdo taking Sky around the town. He had no time to come back to kill people, and there was no way that guy would still be in the town after killing someone. Stay. If Austin didn't kill him, then it would be easier." Natasha breathed a sigh of relief. At least according to the information given by Fury, Austin knew that he could not control his powers and chose to live alone by the rocky seaside. Her overall impression of Austin was not bad. Yes, it also shows that Fury has a good eye for people, and he can tell that Austin has good intentions. In the name of S.H.I.E.L.D., Natasha sent the video of Calvin killing Robert to Fury, and soon received a message back from Fury. "Don't worry about the murderer. Just hand Sky over to the police. The mission of contacting Austin continues." For this reason, Natasha was a little confused. Why did she feel that Fury actually knew the murderer? As for handing the little girl over to the police, what was the operation? Didn't she agree to protect her? Since there was no need to worry about the murderer, Natasha naturally chose to hide in the dark, waiting for Li Feng to send Sky back. However, before Natasha could hide, she felt someone in the distance using a telescope to observe her. Natasha looked up in the direction of the telescope without thinking. In the distance, Calvin, who was hiding in the distance waiting for Sky to come back, saw Natasha looking at him, calmly put down the telescope in his hand, turned around and left the town. Calvin just has a brain defect and gets emotional easily, which does not mean that his IQ is off the charts. He understands that he cannot afford to offend a Burgundy woman who can spot him from all the way. If he chooses to confront her head-on like a brainless person, he will only suffer a loss. Carrying the luggage, Calvin lowered his head and glanced at the blood on me, thinking silently, "I have found my daughter anyway, just wait for the right opportunity to take Daisy with me. There is no need for my daughter to see the blood on me. What should I do if my baby daughter is frightened?" There is a kind of time travel in the world. When the alarm rings, you are ready to take a 5-minute nap, but when you wake up, you find that you have traveled to the future 5 hours later. Li Feng is facing this situation now. When he wakes up and looks out the window, he finds that the half hour he originally squinted has turned into a sunset, and at the same time, there is a strong smell of cake coming from the RV. Li Feng stretched his waist while yawning, scratched his head and asked the little guy who was busy in front of the oven, "Sky, I didn't expect that you have cooking skills at such a young age." Seeing that Li Feng, who was sleeping like a dead pig, finally woke up, Sky said shyly, "Uncle, I'm a little hungry, so I made some cakes by myself." Sky was speechless about Li Feng's behavior of sleeping for half a day. If it weren't for the fact that the security in the United States was in a mess after dark, and she was not familiar with the environment of the small town, she didn't know whether it would be dangerous to appear alone on a strange street, especially when she saw several police cars passing by the RV with sirens. She wanted to get off the car and walk back to the convenience store to wait for Robert. Because Sky always changed the host families, Sky, who was still young, thought that she had rich experience in judging people. She judged that Li Feng was not a bad person, but just gave people a feeling of being unreliable. In addition, Sky was a little hungry. After all, snacks can't be eaten as meals, so Sky decided to use Li Feng's flour to make some delicious food. As a result, Li Feng woke up just after the cake was baked. Even if Li Feng said that this was his own home, it would be embarrassing to be caught by the RV owner. After all, she didn't tell Li Feng in advance that she wanted to borrow tools to make some cakes. Li Feng licked his lips, walked to the oven with an appearance of being tempted by the fragrance, took the anti-heat gloves from Sky, and said, "Actually, you can wake me up, I can take you to the restaurant for dinner." Li Feng took out the cake while speaking, smelled the fragrance of the cake and couldn't help but take a bite, and said, "It tastes good. I didn't see that you still have the potential to be a cake maker." Looking at Li Feng, who didn't look angry at all, Sky was relieved and said, "Uncle likes it, can you take me home now? Mr. Robert should be worried about me." Li Feng, chewing the cake in his mouth, handed the cake to Sky, and said as he walked to the driver's seat, "My fault, I will take you home now." After a while, Li Feng returned to Robert's convenience store. Li Feng expressed his understanding of the cordon of the bar next door. After all, it was he who protected the police at the beginning. But the convenience store was still closed, which made Li Feng think maliciously. Robert went to the hospital to see his wife and didn't come back yet. Is it because his wife hasn't been rescued yet? Sky also saw the convenience store still locked, turned to look at Li Feng, and asked with his eyes, "What should I do?" Li Feng spread his hands and said, "First of all, I don't have a phone, nor Robert's number. I can't contact Robert." Through the windshield, Li Feng looked up at the second floor of the convenience store and said, "Did Robert give you the key to your house?" Just as Sky shook his head to deny that he had a key, Natasha, with 3 police officers from S.H.I.E.L.D., twisted her slim waist and walked to the driver's window, knocked on the window and said, "You must be Mr. Austin." Li Feng felt that Natasha looked familiar, but after thinking for a long time, he didn't know when he had seen this beauty, and asked puzzledly, "Yes, who are you?" Natasha looked at Sky in the car and said, "I am Robert's niece, Natasha. I think he told you about me." Natasha. Li Feng's pupils shrank, and he cursed in his heart. "Black Widow looks familiar, and you Robert, I misjudged you. You are also from S.H.I.E.L.D., and you still say niece. Black Widow is old enough to be your grandmother, and you still use niece to fool me." Li Feng smiled slowly. "Yes, I know you. What's the matter?" It can only be said that Li Feng's expression is not well concealed. When Li Feng's pupils shrank subconsciously, the experienced Natasha had already judged that Li Feng knew him. She was a little curious about Li Feng's source of information. First, he dug out the Hydra hidden deep in the bureau, and then knew his existence. You know, most of the tasks she performed were espionage activities that few people knew about. Although many people in the circle knew her name, she was sure that Li Feng was not a member of the spy circle. Natasha pointed at Sky and said, "I'm here to pick up Sky. You were in town all afternoon. Didn't you hear that Robert had an accident?" "Accident?" Li Feng scratched his brow and glanced at the 3 policemen. Thinking about how to stay away from Black Widow, he said in a joking tone, "Sorry, I overslept in the RV this afternoon and didn't hear any news. May I ask what happened to Robert? It's not that his wife didn't come back to be rescued and scared him to have a heart attack," and the couple burped and went to heaven together. Li Feng's words not only received Sky's eye roll, but also received Natasha's serious nod. Li Feng was stunned for a moment, stared and said, "You mean they really?" The police behind Natasha coughed dryly to indicate that there were minors at the scene, and some words should not be said in front of children. Natasha nodded in understanding and said, "Mr. Austin, please open the door and let Sky get down." While speaking, Natasha opened the driver's door and signaled Li Feng and Sky to get out of the driver's seat. Li Feng glanced at Natasha's cuffs covertly. In his impression, Black Widow seemed to like hiding some electric shock weapons in her cuffs. At the same time, he was not sure whether Natasha used Sky as an excuse to force him to get out of the car and launch a sudden attack. Considering that Fury was preparing to imprison him for interrogation half a year ago, Li Feng had every reason to believe that Natasha would attack him. Fortunately, Li Feng paid attention to safety when driving. Because there was a child in the car, the door was locked from the beginning. Natasha could not open the driver's door with normal human strength. Li Feng stood up and motioned for Sky to get out of the car through the side door. He turned to Natasha and said, "Did that African chief evolve into a braised egg?" Natasha, I know from Coulson that you like to call Fury a non-Emirati, but what does braised egg mean? Or does it mean that you think Fury's black face is delicious? Opening the car door, Sky walked out of the car with the car accessories given to her by Li Feng. She looked at the police and then turned around and said, "Uncle, can you adopt me? I feel like I have to change adoptive parents again." Before Li Feng could refuse, Natasha half crouched in front of Sky, looked at Li Feng and said, "Little Sky, Uncle Austin has no source of income and no fixed residence. It's good that he can support himself, let alone I'm eligible to adopt you." The corners of Li Fang's eyes twitched slightly, and he cursed. It seems that I am so poor, but I took out one of my collections, which is a priceless treasure that shocked the world. Natasha touched Sky's head, turned to the police and said, please help her find a family with a good environment. The three policemen nodded and motioned for Sky to follow them. When Sky left, Li Fang quickly closed the door and sat in the driver's seat, preparing to start the RV and leave, because he saw that Natasha did not follow Sky away, but looked at him with interest. Maiden knew that Fury wouldn't let me go so easily. I just left the United States this time. Let's see how you find me. Just as Li Fang was about to step on the accelerator, he heard the sound of Natasha taking a step forward and then jumping up and stepping on the car. Through the rearview mirror, Li Fang watched with twitching lips as Natasha grabbed the edge of the top of the RV with both hands, turned over and landed firmly on the roof of the RV. Unless Natasha storms into the RV, Li Fang is not prepared to take action. After all, how can he survive in New York after hurting Natasha? How to sneak into the Avengers and get the Infinity Stones? Sighing, Li Fang stepped on the accelerator and shouted, Sister, I want to take you for a ride. Do you want to go somewhere? Widow sister. Are you talking about Black Widow? You also know how to call me sister, you really know a lot. Natasha pulled out the dagger from her calf and stabbed it through the roof of the car to fix herself, while shouting, Austin, I don't mean any harm, I need to talk to you. That stewed egg didn't make me think well. Li Fang, who was driving the RV crookedly and preparing to throw Natasha out of the RV, used his mental power to lock Natasha's every move while looking for few pedestrians. A suitable place to open the portal, shouting, how many years have you worked with him? I think you know better than me how serious his suspicion is, especially the kind that cannot be cured even by the world's top experts. It makes me weak. I'll go back with you when I get there, save it. If a trained person drives away in a car, he will subconsciously walk in a zigzag pattern, but has Li Fang been trained? No, so the driving he drove was often unexpected. For example, when it was clear that he should turn left on the road, Li Fang turned right and drove into the flower bed next to the road, or when he saw that the road was wider, Li Fang stepped on the accelerator and circled for 3 seconds. When Natasha thought Li Fang was still going to circle, Li Fang stepped on the accelerator and continued moving forward. Coupled with the sudden braking from time to time, Natasha, who has many years of experience in lying on the car, said, I can't stand it, it's so uncomfortable, I want to vomit. Seeing that Natasha seemed to be glued to the RV, the helpless Li Fang decided to do something more serious, such as opening a teleportation portal into the air and doing a high-altitude bungee jump without a safety rope. It would be really fun. Thinking of this, Li Fang stretched out his hand to open the portal and shouted, Girl, my brother will take you to watch the sunrise, aren't you excited? Natasha, who noticed Li Fang's gesture, didn't understand the meaning of Li Fang's words when she saw a swirling orange-yellow light door suddenly appeared in the distance, and in the middle of the light door was the slightly bright sky. Natasha didn't want to try to travel through space for no reason, even if she was now sure that the suspected wormhole device in the intelligence was actually Li Fang's superpower. Because she was driving into the portal, the RV no longer twisted around, but drove in a straight line. Natasha decisively jumped out of the RV at this time and watched Li Fang drive through the light door and disappear before her eyes. After a long time, Natasha took out her mobile phone and called Fury and said, Sir, do you have any good news? Did Li Fang catch him? Natasha said while arranging her messy clothes, This is bad news. The good news is that Li Fang does not have the device to open the wormhole, but his superpower. Fury. Well, at least you don't have to worry about wormholes. Passing through the portal, Li Fang in midair excitedly felt the RV rolling freely while quickly opening the portal. A portal suddenly appeared in the uninhabited desert area of Kuna Province, Afghanistan. Back on the ground, Li Fang pushed open the door and got out of the RV. He leaned on his knees and looked up at the sky. He licked his mouth and grinned. Cool, exciting, this is called bungee jumping. Although the desert area is uninhabited and not suitable for tourism, it is also such an environment that is suitable for Li Fang to practice magic. For example, Li Fang can unscrupulously study and practice the dark magic pried out from Dobby's mouth. Li Fang, who secretly made up his mind to become stronger as soon as possible, except occasionally driving back to the metropolis to have a good meal to relax, is devoted to studying various dark magic. After more than half a year of thinking and practicing, Li Feng finally mastered a lot of low-end dark magic. As for the high-end ones, Li Feng said that he only dared to study but not practice. After all, the spells in Dobby's mouth had not been sorted out by Ancient One. With Li Feng's current knowledge reserves, he could still judge whether there were traps in the low-end spells, but he could not judge what traps were hidden in those high-end spells. In the early morning, Li Feng counted with his fingers and calculated, "Today is sunny and cloudless, a good day for crossing." By the way, I don't know if Li Feng is unlucky or Afghanistan is really like this. Anyway, in the past 6 months, Li Feng has seen only a few days with dark clouds in the sky. It's only now that Li Feng is playing the portal well. When he is thirsty and wants to take a shower, he opens a bowl-sized portal connecting to the river. Otherwise, he really can't stay in this desert area where water is more expensive than gold. Before crossing, Li Feng must first hide the RV, otherwise the two worlds will go back and forth for several months. What if the most valuable item Li Feng left in the Marvel world, that is, the RV, is stolen? This is also Mordo's gift, symbolizing the passion of the two. After a long time, Li Feng, who had been driving around in the desert, finally found a hidden cave in the hills. After parking the RV, Li Feng set up a magic circle nearby to shield the fluctuations of mana, in order to prevent the opening of the portal from alarming the temple wizard and causing unnecessary trouble. When everything was ready, Li Feng took a deep breath and opened the portal. Li Feng, who was squeezed out of a rubber pipe by the portal like milk, had the first impression of this world that it was cold, so cold that he shivered subconsciously. Li Feng tightened his wizard robe and observed the dim environment around him. With just one glance, Li Feng confessed to Mordo in his heart, "I said before that you had a problem with your character. When I traveled with you, I either arrived in a world full of plague or in an alley full of rats. Now I solemnly apologize to you. It's not that you have a problem with your character, but I have a problem. At least I can guarantee my freedom after traveling with you. What about me? I traveled in a cold and damp prison cell. What the hell is this situation? Do I have a prisoner's face or am I destined to be hunted down by someone? There is a boiled egg in the Marvel world who wants to imprison me, but I am directly imprisoned in this world." Li Feng, who was full of black lines, drew out the magic long knife and chopped open the prison door with one knife. As soon as he walked out of the prison door, Li Feng saw a huge man in the cell next door, squatting in a corner of the cell and shivering as if the sky was falling. Li Feng glanced around. In addition to the dim and humid environment, this was a prison without even a guard. He couldn't figure out what this guy with amazing height was afraid of. It can't be that he is afraid of the dark, right? Could this be the legendary strong man who has a girlish heart that is afraid of the dark? Out of curiosity about height, Li Feng silently thought about the scene of the two people facing each other and comparing their heights. I am probably only as tall as the other person's chest, so I am just a little bird in the other person's eyes. Thinking of this, Li Feng suddenly shuddered, because the bird, nestled in the giant's arms in his mind was him. Throwing out the hellish fantasy picture, Li Feng knocked on the cell door with a magic long knife, signaling the giant in the cell to look at him, and asked, "Brother, are you a giant or a dwarf?" Although Li Feng guessed that the other party was a giant with a high probability, considering that the dwarves in the Marvel world are all tall and strong, and abruptly changing the dwarf country to the giant country, Li Feng had to have this question. The giant shrank back, looked at Li Feng with fear and a little curiosity, and asked, "Are you from the Ministry of Magic? The Chamber of Secrets was not opened by me. I don't want to stay in Azkaban, let me go." Perhaps because of excitement or fear, the giant spoke a little fast, causing Li Feng, who only knew American English, to be stunned for a long time before he realized what the other party was saying in a British accent. Ministry of Magic. Is it the government of the mysterious side of this world? If the Chamber of Secrets was not opened by you, then did it open by me? What's the point of telling me this? I'm not an important member of the Ministry of Magic. Azkaban. This is a bit familiar, I seem to have heard it there. And this colloquialism, why does it sound a bit awkward? Li Feng scratched his head, pointed at his feet, looked at the familiar giant with a full beard, and asked, "Which country is this? Also, I think you look quite silly, what's your name? Tell me, maybe I know you." Li Feng has watched the Harry Potter series of movies, but that was 800 years ago. It's good enough to have an impression of Azkaban. How can you think of where this is after hearing the giant's words? Li Feng doesn't have such a good memory. Until the giant said in a muffled voice, "My name is Rubeus Hagrid, you can call me Hagrid, sir, this is Azkaban, what are you doing in prison?" Hagrid looked at Li Feng with a puzzled look, saying that Li Feng was imprisoned in Azkaban as a prisoner, but he was well dressed and wandering around the prison with a long knife. Never mind that any prisoner could still go to jail with a weapon. It didn't sound like he was visiting the prison. At least he didn't find the right person to chat with. Instead, he was chatting with a stranger himself. After hesitating for a moment, Hagrid asked, "Are you from the Ministry of Magic?" Hagrid. Li Feng stared blankly at the giant man in front of him. He already knew where it was, Azkaban. Isn't it the magic prison built by the Ministry of Magic in the cold North Sea area in the Harry Potter world? No wonder it's so cold. Think about what there is in Harry's world, countless magics, various magic potions and alchemy items. The most important thing is that red-haired Ron's father, Mr. Weasley, has a technology that Li Feng has always been coveted. Transformed into a flying car that can become invisible. If he learned how to magically modify cars, Li Feng would return to the Marvel world and magically modify his RV, and expand the space in the car. For example, he could use the invisible telescopic spell to transform his locker into the size of 2 football fields. Let Li Feng roll around in the locker unscrupulously, it's a pleasure to think about it. Pouting, Li Feng touched his pocket with a little chill. "Ma Dan, the prerequisite for doing all this is that I have to have gold galleons in my pocket." Li Feng asked with a hint of trepidation, "Do you know Harry Potter? Does he go to Hogwarts?" Li Feng asked this because he wanted to understand what time period this was and where Harry's story had developed. If Harry hadn't been born yet, he would have turned around and left Azkaban. After all, there was nothing in Azkaban worth his nostalgia's things. Seeing Hagrid nodding to show that he knew Harry Potter, and that Harry was still a student, Li Feng felt like he was in a scorching summer. Suddenly, a cool energy penetrated his body from the Tianling guy, and his whole body felt chilly. It was so refreshing. Suddenly, Li Feng seemed to think of something. When he looked for the fat sheep in his mind, he looked at Hagrid doubtfully. "Azkaban. Isn't it a prison guarded by Dementors? I don't remember Hagrid being imprisoned in Azkaban. What's going on? Isn't this a fake Harry Potter world? Hagrid, tell me how you got locked up here." Hagrid's character is a bit naive, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. He doesn't even know who Li Feng is, so how can he dare to casually say something about whether Hogwarts can continue to operate? Seeing Hagrid covering his mouth and refusing to say anything, Li Feng shrugged and continued to look for fat sheep that could provide him with a large amount of gold galleons. As for Hagrid, he wouldn't say anything if he didn't want to. He didn't. If you want to sneak into Hogwarts and learn magic, you probably won't see Hagrid again in the future. And how could he sneak into school when he looked like an adult now? Aren't you afraid that Dumbledore will treat him like a Death Eater and hang him up at the school gate? There are many ways to learn magic, such as paying to hire a private tutor. This is probably more efficient than having a professor teach a group of children. After walking around the cell for a long time, Li Feng finally found the fat sheep in his heart. Li Feng stood in front of a cell door, feeling a little uneasy. He thought that if he traveled at the wrong time and didn't meet the person he was looking for, Jinjalong would have to say goodbye to him. Then he would still have to waste time. Thinking of other ways to make some money, isn't this a waste of his precious time? Looking at the thin man with dull eyes and dirty hair and clothes, Li Feng said, "Hello, are you Sirius Black? I know where Peter Pettigrew is. Do you want revenge? If so, hand over a third of it. I will hand over Pettigrew's property to you." After thinking about it, Li Feng was not sure that he could capture Peter Pettigrew alive. After all, that guy was so good at escaping. It can only be said that the mouse's escape attribute was fully tapped by him. Li Feng added, "Without a quarter of the family property, I bring dead Peter Pettigrew to you." Squatting in the corner of the prison, Black, who looked like Sirius, his dull eyes turned bloodthirsty after hearing Li Feng's words, and a crazy aura gradually spread on his face. Blake rushed to the cell door and tried to grab Li Feng's collar, but Li Feng had exorcised his body after all, so how could he be caught so easily? Seeing that Li Feng was caught, Black shouted, let me out, I will kill Pettigrew with my own hands. He is mine, no one can kill him. Hearing Black admit that he was serious, Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief. His previous worries that he had traveled through time too late, causing the wealthy Black to escape from Azkaban, disappeared because he knew that he had traveled to the right place at the right time. Location: as long as he takes Black out of Azkaban, I believe Black will pay him a large sum of gold galleons, if he tells the other party the location of Pettigrew, haha. Diagon Alley, here I come. Azkaban is a prison in the wizarding world. The prisoners have no human rights here. Let alone reading a newspaper for entertainment, they don't even have time to relax in the prison. The only space they can move is their own prison. Chatting with inmates, haha, Azkaban provides a single suite, you deserve it. Perhaps it was because he had been imprisoned for too long and had not communicated with anyone for a long time. Blake seemed to have a lot to say. Finally, he met Li Feng, who was willing to listen to his complaints. His mouth was like a faucet that could not be turned off, and he kept talking. Stop. I saw the skinny Black slumped on the ground and said with a sneer, back then, the mysterious man was so powerful that he turned the wizarding world upside down. He was ready to kill the infant Harry just because of a prophecy. It turned out that Harry's father James Potter prepared a magic to hide his home, so as to avoid the pursuit of the mysterious man, but this magical magic requires a secret keeper. As long as the secret keeper does not leak Porter's home, the mysterious man will never be found. Harry. It's a pity that we trusted the wrong person and let the traitor Pettigrew become the secret keeper, which led to the mysterious man not only finding Harry's home, but also killing Harry's parents. If Harry's mother Lily Potter hadn't used her life to protect Harry, Lee killed you-know-who, Harry now. After the murder of Harry's family, I found out that all this was caused by Pettigrew betraying us and taking refuge with the mysterious man, so I went to seek revenge on him alone. Unexpectedly, he used a magic to blow up half the street and escaped, and I was arrested on the spot by the arriving Aurors, and the Ministry of Magic imprisoned me in Azkaban without trial in order to calm down the time. I thought I would never hear Pettigrew's name in my life. I thought about how good friends we were back then and were inseparable all day long. I didn't expect that he would betray us. I was really blind. I didn't expect that after staying in Azkaban for 12 years, I suddenly heard the news about him, Black said with a distorted face and bloodthirsty eyes. It's great. I let him escape last time. This time, I will do it with my own hands. Kill him. Li Feng, who was quietly listening to the audience, knew that Black, who had taken the blame for Pettigrew, had been in Azkaban for 12 years, and thought to himself, in other words, Harry is already 12 years old, and is the second year of Hogwarts. Students. Scratching his head, Li Feng recalled the plot of Harry. Let's not talk about the Philosopher's Stone in the first one. Time has passed, but I have no connection with that broken stone at first glance, whether it is Dumbledore or Nicholas. May can easily defeat me. Now it's time for the second basilisk. It seems that I can't defeat it, unless it's a blind basilisk. After all, those eyes are so disgusting that anyone who stares at them will die. Mr. Black, as I said, as long as you pay me, I will help you open the cell door and let you out, and take you back to London safely. Of course, if you pay me more, I will tell you Pettigrew it's not negotiable anywhere, how about that? Of course I wanted to leave here, but Blake looked out the window with interest, estimated the time, and pointed in the direction of the prison entrance and exit and said, it's dinner time. If you can resist the Dementors, we'll discuss the reward thing. Dementors, Li Feng said with a smile. Dementors are the best caretakers for Azkaban, but to me they are just test subjects lying obediently on the test bench. After thinking for a moment, Li Feng added, it should be said that all creatures with twisted minds will behave like pets in front of me. As soon as Li Feng finished speaking, Blake seemed to feel something and curled up on the ground shivering. As for Li Feng, he felt the cold air accompanying the Dementors before he even saw them appear. It has to be said that if the Dementors could control their desires, they would definitely be able to survive in the hot summer with just their own cold air. Will be welcome. At the same time, Li Feng also heard someone talking. No, to be precise, it was the undead talking, because the language Li Feng heard was the undead language he would use when talking to corpses. Li Feng, who had just taken out a wooden box, looked towards the entrance of the prison following the sound of the dead mantra, and saw two Dementors floating in the air, wearing tattered cloaks and looking as if they had been soaked in water and rotting. Li Feng listened. The undead language he heard was uttered by one of the Dementors. Although the Dementors have no eyes and cannot see Li Feng, they can rely on smell and emotion to determine that there is a prisoner standing in front of them. Although the two Dementors were a little curious about why a prisoner they didn't know came to the prison, they were good children who were not picky eaters. Anyone who stayed in Azkaban was their food. Thinking of this, a Dementor that was so hungry in Li Feng's eyes rushed towards him while muttering, "Food." Li Feng, who turned on his Dharma eyes, looked at the Dementors curiously, curled his lips and said to Blake, "The Dementors speak the language of the dead. Are they a type of undead creature? Dude, do you have an encyclopedia of the undead? Help me find out what species this is." After saying that, Li Feng silently complained in his heart, "And your spirit body, I don't know how to describe it. It's not accurate to say that the spirit body is broken into pieces and put back together with glue. It's so messed up. No wonder you guys' brain is sick." Watching a Dementor rush toward him, Li Feng mobilized his magic power and asked Black with a smile, "I heard that you can only defend against the Dementor's attack, but cannot kill them." As he spoke, a Dementor stretched out its crusted palm and floated to Li Feng, preparing to have a feast. However, before the Dementor could touch Li Feng's palm containing magic slapped the Dementor. In Black's incredible eyes, the Dementor photographed by Li Feng suddenly stayed in place motionless. Li Feng's eyes were full of disdain. While rubbing his palms that were cold due to being too close to the Dementors, he muttered silently, "I can't extract the spirit body of a living person for the time being, but you are so fragmentary. Can't I get out of a spiritual body like this?" The other Dementor seemed surprised that someone could kill his companion, but before he had enough brain capacity to think about what to do, he was driven by the desire to suck and pounced on Li Feng. Now that the spirit spell has been tested, Li Feng is of course prepared to use another method to kill this brainless Dementor, not only to test the spell on the Key of Solomon, but also to let Blake know that he is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Before the Dementor could get closer, Li Feng stretched out his hand and pointed at the other person, and softly spat out, "Purify." Blake watched blankly as Li Feng's fingertips shot out a beam of white light, accurately hitting the Dementor. The Dementor that had tortured him for 12 years was like a snowman put into a boiling oil pot, and was instantly corroded into slag by the white light. Li Feng retracted his fingers and put them to his mouth, blowing gently on his fingertips like a cowboy shooting his prey. He turned to the dumbfounded Black and said, "I have always had a question. Dementors can feel each other. The more painful it is, the more they like it, but the problem is that what they smell is pain, and what is wrong with it is happiness and courage. Shouldn't we feel the pain and sorrow, suck the pain and sorrow? Or feel the happiness, suck the joy? If someone feels that he has a tragic life and only has pain in his heart, the Dementor also feels his pain, but he can't breathe for a long time. What should I do if I am not happy? Will the Dementor become autistic?" Blake only felt that his head hurt. His attention was entirely focused on the Dementor who was stunned by Li Feng's palm. He didn't even pay attention to what Li Feng was saying. He only knew that the Dementor who was still staying in place, and like those who have been sucked by Dementors with the Dementor's kiss, their souls are lost. Only the brain and heart are still working, but they no longer have self-awareness, no memory, and there is no hope of recovery. An empty body. This is more terrifying than killing a Dementor. Blake realized that as long as Li Feng was willing, he could create hundreds of people who had been kissed by the Dementor's kiss. If this magic was spread, especially those who were kissed by the mysterious once people know about it, the disaster will be even greater. Li Feng saw something in Blake's frightened eyes and said with a smile, "It's not as scary as you think. This spell is only effective on Dementors with defective spirits. It's like me knocking your spirit body out of the flesh, but won't you return to your physical body on your own?" Pointing at the dazed Dementor, Li Feng continued, "To put it simply, the spirit body of the Dementor is like a road fool. Once it leaves the physical body, it does not know the way back to the physical body. Maybe it is the only way he can return to the physical body. The brain cannot understand that he no longer has a physical body. Spirit body. What is that?" Black pointed at the prison entrance and said, "Does your spell kill the Dementors one by one, or does it kill them one by one? Azkaban is regarded as a lair by the Dementors. The number of ghost monsters is astonishing." Li Feng bumped the wooden box in his hand, and while walking around the stunned Dementor, he said, "Spirit, I can't explain it for a while. How about I teach you before we leave? As long as you pay me a sum the reward for learning spiritual spells, as for the large number of Dementors, you will know later." Li Feng touched his chin, turned to look at Blake, and said, "What do you think of me keeping a Dementor as a pet? It's very cool when I go shopping." Seeing that there was hope of being released from prison, and there was also a chance to kill Pettigrew, Blake was in a much better mood. He could even roll his eyes at Li Feng and said, "It's quite cool. I guess you are the only one in the magic world who dares to think so. Aren't you afraid that they will bite the Lord one day? It's so simple, just don't give them the chance to bite the master." Feeling that the air was cooling down, Li Feng glanced at the frost that was quickly forming on the ground. He understood that this was a large number of Dementors aware of the death of their companions, and were preparing to come to check, or to avenge their companions. Li Feng licked his lips, and when several Dementors appeared in front of him, he quickly opened the mirror space and wrapped several Dementors in the mirror space. Then he opened the wooden box with a grin and spoke to the Dementors in the language of the dead. The monster said, "Surrender or die. Maiden, I have wanted to say this to magical creatures for a long time, but my strength was too low before. I was beaten. Finally, I encountered a magical creature that was restrained by me. I feel so sorry if I don't say this." In the mirror space, several Dementors were forced into a corner by the deadly energy emitted by the pseudo-angel feathers as the wooden box in Li Feng's hand was opened. They shivered and wailed in pain that only Li Feng could hear. It was not until Li Feng felt that these Dementors might really die after being exposed to the pseudo-angel feathers for a while that Li Feng closed the wooden box and said, "Now, those who choose to surrender kneel on the ground and sign a slave contract with me. Those who want to die, just say it, and I will fulfill your wish. The law of the jungle is the basic law of nature. To live or die, Dementors will certainly choose to live, just like Dementors will surrender to the mysterious man in the future." Li Feng didn't know how the mysterious man subdued the Dementors, but it was nothing more than a threat of force or some kind of temptation. Now, Li Feng just showed his ability to kill the Dementors, and the Dementors lowered their heads and waited for Li Feng to carve the contract. After subduing the Dementors in the mirror space, Li Feng could not wait to open the portal and ordered in the dead language, "Now, bring in all the Dementors who have not signed the slave contract." The slave Dementors nodded slightly and said in the dead language, "Yes, master." After that, these Dementors returned to the real world through the portal, and all Li Feng had to do was wait in the mirror space for his newly recruited servants to capture the Dementors one by one into the mirror space. At the beginning, Li Feng was afraid that his servants were too few, and the captured Dementors would resist after understanding what fate they were about to face. For safety reasons, Li Feng also maintained the mirror space, and after several wild Dementors were thrown into the mirror space, he closed the portal to prevent them from escaping, and took out the wooden box to threaten them in the same way before subduing them. But as the Dementors in Azkaban continued to become Li Feng's servants, the number of Dementors traveling back and forth between reality and the mirror space increased rapidly like a snowball. In the end, too many wild Dementors were caught too quickly, so Li Feng simply walked out of the mirror space and stood in front of Black, letting him watch how he subdued the Dementors. It was not until the sky began to light up that Li Feng completely subdued the last Dementor. Black, squatting in the cell, twitched his eyes as he watched a slightly larger Dementor standing behind Li Feng like a good baby, and said, "I originally thought about how the Ministry of Magic would arrest me after I left Azkaban. Now, I guess no one will notice me even if I walk openly on the street, because the Ministry of Magic's attention is all on you. I just want to say, man, you have a talent for making trouble." Black stretched out his dry, skinny hand, motioned to shake hands with Li Feng, and said, "Although you know my name, I don't know your name yet, which is not fair." After shaking hands, Li Feng motioned Black to step back, and said while splitting the cell door, "Austin, just call me Austin." Walking out of the cell, Black took a deep breath of the air that represented freedom and said, "How are you going to arrange these Dementors? I have to remind you that Dementors haunt the darkest and dirtiest places. They like corruption and despair and will suck the peace, hope and happiness out of the air around them. If you get too close to a Dementor, any good feelings and happy memories you have will be sucked away by it." Black looked Li Feng up and down and continued, "Although I don't know how you can ignore the Dementors around you, I think your family may not be able to bear having a Dementor around them. Ignore. You think too highly of me. I am not ignoring you. I am just trying my best to stabilize my spirit. As long as my spirit is stable enough, the Dementors can't find my emotions, let alone suck my happiness. I'll kill him in a minute if he sucks one. But it's really uncomfortable to have a Dementor around. I only thought about subduing the Dementors before, but didn't think about how to arrange them. Li Feng scratched his head awkwardly, turned around and ordered the leader of the Dementors, that is, the guy behind Li Feng who was slightly larger than the normal Dementors, and said, "You stay here and continue to be your guards. Before my order, you still follow the instructions of the Ministry of Magic. It is a great thing for the Dementors not to leave Azkaban. After all, this is their home and their restaurant. They will be hungry after leaving Azkaban." The leader of the Dementors nodded slightly and said, "Yes, Master." Azkaban has now become Li Feng's sphere of influence. In addition to the cold and humid environment, the most important thing is that the big fat sheep is in hand. Li Feng can no longer think of a reason for himself to stay in Azkaban. Under the guidance of the Dementors, Li Feng and Black walked out of Azkaban and stood on a reef. After a long while, Li Feng complained about the bunker-like structure of Azkaban, and said to Black who was shouting at the sea, "Have you finished venting? We will leave after you vent." Black took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, turned his head and said, "The taste of freedom." After that, Black looked around for something and said, "How do we leave? Swim, or the door key? By the way, I have always wondered how you appeared in Azkaban, and I noticed that you did not use a wand when casting spells, but I can feel that your physical magic power is actually not much, which is about the same as the 5th and 6th grade students in Hogwarts. And, I have never seen any of your spells." Li Feng felt that Black might have been pent up for many years because no one had chatted with him. Now he finally found himself to chat, and was ready to say all the words he had been holding back for 12 years in Azkaban at once. After picking his ears, Li Feng signaled Blake to shut up and asked, "Which direction is London?" Blake was stunned. After pointing in the direction, he asked curiously, "Why are you asking for the direction?" As soon as Blake finished speaking, Li Feng had already opened a portal. Although the world of Harry Potter is also on Earth, Li Feng said that he has never been to the UK, let alone where London is. In addition, Li Feng doesn't even know what the landmark buildings in London look like, and where the portal can be opened. London is weird. So now, Li Feng chooses the most exciting method of teleportation and opens the teleportation gate high into the sky. When the two of them are in free fall in the air, Li Feng looks into the distance again and opens the teleportation gate. It is like falling into a bottomless pit. Beihai is some distance from London, and Li Feng's mana cannot guarantee that they can feel London in one day, so before Li Feng's mana is about to run out, he has to open the portal to a nearby island to prepare for a rest. At night, the two of them sat around the campfire, grilling fish while keeping warm. I don't know how the food in Azkaban is like, but Li Feng thought that Blake was going crazy with hunger. Not only did he snatch the half-cooked fish from him, but he also ate all the fish scales clean. As a last resort, Li Feng could only go back to the beach to catch some sea fish again. When Li Feng cleaned the sea fish and put them in the campfire to roast, he accidentally saw Blake, whose eyes were glowing green, staring at the fish in his hand. Li Feng was frightened, almost dumped the fish in Blake's face. Rolling his eyes at Blake, Li Feng said with a money-obsessed look on his face, "Man, this is my fish. If you want to eat it, it's a gold galleons." The corners of Blake's eyes twitched slightly, and he said angrily, "Don't think that I don't know the current prices after staying in Azkaban for 12 years. 1 gold galleon can buy a basket of sea fish. How short of money are you? Or are you talking about money? You talk about money at all times." Li Feng spread his hands and said with a grimace, "I am poor. People like you who were born in a wealthy family will not understand the suffering of poor people like us. Let me put it this way, you don't need money to buy anything except the air you breathe, everything else needs money to buy." Black looked at Li Feng speechlessly and said, "Shanshan, no, I understand. I don't know where you know my past, but you probably don't know that during the time when I was removed from the Black family, I was penniless. When he was a minor, he could still live in his friend James's house. As an adult, he could only earn a living by helping others modify motorcycles. Oh, It was the kind of motorcycle that could fly. After all, not everyone likes to fly around on a broomstick. Some rich wizards pursue their own individuality, so in general, I can still rely on my craft to support myself. Hearing Blake's words, Li Feng felt his eyes light up. He had been searching for her for hundreds of times in his dream, but that person lived across the street. Doesn't what he lacks is the skills to modify the RV. Since Black has this skill, why would he go to the trouble of finding Ron's father? This is not about seeking the far side. Li Feng put on his most kind smile and said, "You want to eat fish, right? It's easy. As long as you teach me how to magically modify a motorcycle, let alone eating such a small fish, I will catch a whale to honor you." Quote. Blake glanced at Li Feng, and then turned to the already roasted sea fish. Li Feng said that he understood immediately and respectfully offered the sea fish with both hands. Taking the grilled fish, Blake blew on the grilled fish to avoid burning his mouth and said, "There are a lot of things involved here, which cannot be learned in a short time, and it is difficult for you to learn by just talking without doing." Blake looked Li Feng up and down and said faintly, "Do you have any documents?" "If I guessed correctly, you don't have any documents. After all, you don't even have a wand to represent your identity, so we'd better find a way to get legal documents after we return to London, so you can buy parts in Diagon Alley." "Documents? Which department should issue my certificate?" "The Travelers Association." Li Feng shrugged and said that he was a gangster and had no documents. "In addition, I don't know when the Ministry of Magic will find out that I escaped from Azkaban, so we'd better get the documents before the Ministry of Magic issues a wanted order, otherwise the gang of forgers will quietly notify the Ministry of Magic when they make documents for us. Not only receive the commission for making false testimony but also receive the bounty from the Ministry of Magic." Li Feng nodded to show that he understood, and immediately sat cross-legged by the campfire and began to meditate to restore his mana. Blake was stunned by Li Feng's behavior. After all, in his impression, apart from using potions to speed up recovery, magic can only be recovered naturally through time. Black, who had a big question mark on his forehead, thought depressedly, "What did I miss during the 12 years I was in Azkaban?" In the early morning of the next day, when the sun shone on the Thames River, Li Feng stood by the river with a messy hairstyle and a desolate look. He draped his arms on the shoulders of Black, who was in tattered clothes, and said with a heavy breath, "We're finally here, no. It's easy." Blake, who was shivering by the strong wind at high altitude, glanced at the hands on his shoulders with a deeply touched expression. He raised his hands and said, "It's not easy. I swear I will never step over your weird teleportation in this life. Men, look at my hands. I feel like my hands have been dried by the high wind. By the way, can your portal only be opened where you can see it?" Li Feng, who was thoughtful in his heart, shrugged, acquiescing to Black's statement about the portal, and said, "Isn't this exciting? It's much more fun than modifying a flying motorcycle." Black rolled his eyes, looked at the few passers-by on the street, and said, "I guess you, a poor guy, don't have muggle coins on you. I think I'd better walk home and warm myself up." Li Feng dug out his pocket and muttered, "You are talking as if you were rich now, and your pocket is as clean as mine. You are saying that with the way we are dressed now, as long as we squat on the roadside, we will be fine. Someone give us some change for the subway." Unfortunately, the person who responded to Li Feng was a pair of sharp eyes. Blake lowered his voice and bit the corner of his mouth and said sternly, "I would rather wash dishes for others and earn fares than squat on the roadside begging like you." After saying that, Blake stopped talking to Li Feng and walked towards home. "Tch, Li Feng, who was following Blake, whispered contemptuously, "Do you think this is the pride of a noble?" Blake's home was at number 12 Mowgli Place, which was still some distance away from where Li Feng and the two of them were. It wasn't until Li Feng felt that his legs in his lower body were about to break and he needed to call an ambulance for rescue that the two of them walked to the door of Blake's house. Standing between 11 and 13 Mowgli Square, Blake lightly tapped his foot. Li Feng watched curiously as the houses side by side in front of him suddenly moved to both sides, like a huge sliding stone door, until the hidden Mowgli was revealed. House number 12 on the square. However, people living in isolated houses have no sense of all this. Similarly, pedestrians on the few streets are also unaware of all this. Blake looked back at Li Feng and motioned for Li Feng to follow him. I don't know how long it has been since Blake came home. Li Feng, who just walked into the door, covered his mouth and said, Brother, is this a home or a garbage dump? What's with this rotten and moldy smell? Someone is treating your home as a dumpster. Is there a place for fish? Blake also covered his mouth and nose, enduring the musty smell that could kill people, frowning and said, This is my parents' house. I haven't been back since I was kicked out of the family, but now I am the only member of the family left. Here of course it belongs to me, but I remember there is a house elf cleaning the house. Before Black could finish speaking, a house elf about 1 meter tall, with big bat ears and a weird pointed nose that almost reached his upper lip, suddenly appeared in front of the two of them and said, The greedy thief is here again. Black family, there is nothing valuable here anymore. Halfway through the sentence, the house elf seemed to have just seen Black and said with some excitement, Sirius, who betrayed his bloodline, is back. Li Feng quietly poked Blake and said, What's wrong with this guy? On the surface, he was very excited to see you, but what he said made me feel that he disliked you. Blake ignored Li Feng's words, frowned and lowered his head and asked, Creature, you said many thieves have been here. Where is the family's secret basement? Has it been visited by thieves too? Little master. Creature lowered his head humbly and replied, The basement is protected by magic and outsiders cannot enter. Then, Creature said as if talking to himself, Sirius is back with the mudblood, and I want to tell the mistress. After saying that, Creature turned around and left. Li Feng scratched his head and asked in a low voice, Your elf has such a personality, he is a very neurotic elf. Creature was like this when I was a kid. He always made me feel bad instantly. With a helpless look on his face, Blake motioned for Li Feng to follow him and said, Under normal circumstances, no family would take all their property away. If you put it in Gringotts Bank, even if the goblins who manage Gringotts inflate the bank's security to the point where giant dragons surround you, they still won't be able to enter the bank's treasure house. You must know that those goblins are more greedy for money than you think, so every family will build it in secret. A secret room where gold galleons or treasures are stored. Now come with me to get your reward. As soon as they walked into a dilapidated room, Blake and Li Feng suddenly heard a woman's voice yelling madly from outside the door. Before Li Feng could ask, Blake suddenly remembered something, grabbed a tablecloth and turned to leave. After a while, the lady's voice disappeared in an instant. In the room, Li Feng looked at the Black family genealogy hanging on the walls with great interest. Li Feng remembered that Hogwarts could recruit very few new students every year. If the number of new students exceeded 100 in any year, Dumbledore could let him go. Fireworks signify celebration all day long. This also shows from the side that the number of wizards in the entire UK is pitifully small, and there are many wizards like Black's parents who firmly support the blood theory. In order to ensure the purity of wizard blood, these people are basically in a marriage relationship, which leads to the majority of wizards' families are actually all relatives. Anyway, Li Feng felt that the family tree on the wall was quite messy and interesting. He secretly thought that one day Blake would go out on the street and meet a baby who had not yet been weaned. As a result, when they were chatting with the baby's parents, they opened the family tree and saw that the baby was Blake's second uncle. How interesting. Of course, Li Feng also noticed that there were subtle magical fluctuations on the family tree. After a while, Blake returned to the room with an oil lamp and stood in front of the family tree list. He bit his fingertips and gently smeared the name of the ancestor of the Blake family. On the wall, the letters that originally dazzled Li Feng quickly formed an arch. As Blake pushed open the arch, a downward staircase appeared in front of Li Feng. Black handed the oil lamp to Li Feng and said, Don't worry, there are no traps on the stairs leading to the basement. The gold galleons you want are inside. How much you can take out depends on whether your pocket is big enough. Li Feng took the oil lamp, raised his lips slightly and said, What if I take it all? Black shrugged and said, Take it all, I don't care about the money. I hope you won't regret saying this, Li Feng said as he walked into the archway and stood on the steps, Can you give me the food? I've been exhausted these days because of rushing time. Black, who was worried about having no excuse to leave, grinned and said, Of course, but I have to close the archway first to prevent uninvited guests from suddenly breaking in, such as the thief in Creature's mouth. After speaking, Black gently brushed past the archway. Li Feng, who was standing on the steps and smiling, looked at the archway disappearing behind him, and his expression gradually solidified and converged. Touching his chin, Li Feng showed a disdainful expression and said to himself, "If I remember correctly, you who were in Azkaban in the original book saw Pettigrew appear as a Hogwarts student pet, and you escaped from Azkaban at all costs to protect Harry. It can be seen how much you hate Pettigrew and how worried you are about Harry. And in the past few days with me, you seem to have forgotten to ask about Pettigrew's whereabouts, and you are only curious about the strange spells I cast but don't ask. Do you not believe that I know the whereabouts of Pettigrew, or do you not trust me as a person? Do you think I took you away from Azkaban for other purposes? What a pity, I am really only interested in your family's gold galleons. Besides, do you really think that the portal can only be opened to the site? Stupid, when you call for support and find that I disappeared in the basement, your expression must be very interesting." After a while, Li Feng walked down the dusty stairs to the basement. It is called a basement, but in fact the area is about the same as a small square, enough for hundreds of aunts to line up in an orderly team to dance square dance here. Moreover, there are not only various compartments around the square, but also targets for practicing magic. Li Feng casually pushed open a compartment door and saw several shelves in the compartment, on which various magic items were placed. With Li Feng's current knowledge, he could not determine whether it was dangerous to pick up these items. After taking a look, he pushed open the door of the next compartment. Compared with magic items, the various books on the bookshelf in this compartment made Li Feng, who was seriously lacking in magic knowledge, drool. In the end, Li Feng, who could not bear the temptation, pulled out a long knife and poked the book. After a long time, Li Feng, who did not encounter various traps as expected, simply picked up a book with a long knife, took it out of the compartment and placed it on the ground. After thinking about it, Li Feng opened the mirror space and used a long knife to pick up the pages of the book. At a glance, Li Feng felt his head buzzing, not because the book had magic traps, but because this was Britain. Although American English and text were derived from English and spoken language could communicate, many of the text descriptions were actually different. If it was an ordinary book, Li Feng could still read it, but this was a book that recorded magic knowledge, and a wrong understanding of a word could be fatal. Thinking of this, Li Feng felt very upset, which made his original plan to go to Diagon Alley to buy a large number of magic books aborted. He couldn't even understand the text, how could he study, look for reaction software? This is the magic world, and the understanding of the same item is completely different from that in the secular world. Just like the water of life and death in the magic world, the effect is the same as the sleeping pills in the secular world, but the question is which translation software translates sleeping pills into water of life and death. Li Feng's mouth twitched and he picked up the book with a long knife and put it back on the bookshelf. Now, he only hoped that Diagon Alley had a special prop that could translate these words into the American text he was familiar with. Of course, it would be better if it was translated into Chinese characters. After all, Li Feng was more familiar with the understanding of Chinese characters. Li Feng pushed open the doors of the compartments one by one and finally found piles of gold galleons. He grabbed a handful and put them into his pockets. Only when his pockets could hold no more did he reluctantly open the door of the last compartment. In the last compartment, a solitary laboratory table was filled with screwdrivers and drills of various sizes. Unlike other compartments, this laboratory table was relatively clean. Obviously, this was a room that was used all year round. Walking into the compartment, Li Feng looked curiously at a pendant box fixed on the laboratory table. With the dim light of the oil lamp, Li Feng saw a large snake in the shape of an S carved on the outer shell of the pendant box. As his spiritual body magic skills continued to deepen, Li Feng had a strange feeling about the pendant box. He felt that this thing seemed to have life. After thinking about it, Li Feng opened his Dharma eye and looked down at the pendant box. The spirit in the pendant box surprised Li Feng. From the perspective of the spirit, there is indeed a twisted and chaotic soul in the pendant box, but this spirit has no color, but black and white, which means that the soul in the pendant box is a dead soul, but the soul of the dead soul is either dragged into the underworld by the god of death, or slowly dissipated in the air. Moreover, Li Feng also saw that there was a kind of magic on the locket that protected the soul inside, allowing him to hide safely in the locket. Most importantly, Li Feng also saw that this soul was alive, which meant that the soul belonged to a living person, not a real dead soul. Based on his understanding of spirits and the plot of Harry's world, Li Feng immediately thought that the locket was one of the Horcruxes of the mysterious man, the locket of the Salazar Slytherin family. To be honest, when Li Feng first watched the movie, he felt that the mysterious man had transformed himself into a snake-like face that was neither human nor ghost, and felt that the other party was definitely sick in the brain. By the way, is power worth doing this? That thing is not brought with you when you are born, but with you when you die, what's the use? Magicians either achieve immortality through strength, or ask for their portraits to be hung on the wall for people to remember them within 1,000 years after their death. Grinning, Li Feng picked up the locket with a long knife. Don't think that in the film, everyone dares to hold the locket, and it seems that there is no other harm except that wearing the locket for a long time will be bewitched by the residual soul of the mysterious man in the box, but that is a movie, this is the real world. In addition to bewitching people, who knows what magic the mysterious man has engraved on it to protect the locket? What if Li Feng loses control and gets into trouble? He still wants to live a few more years. Li Feng was a little entangled when he took out a scroll and a wooden box containing pseudo-angel feathers. If the locket is wrapped with a scroll, Li Feng is not worried about being tempted by the locket himself. After all, he is a wizard who has learned the spell of temptation from the devil. If Li Feng's magic power is not as pure and as much as the mysterious man, it is hard to tell who will seduce whom. The only thing Li Feng is worried about is whether carrying it with him will accidentally trigger the unknown magic on the locket. Putting the pendant box into the wooden box is interesting. The most basic function of the wooden box is to protect the energy of the pseudo-angel feather from leaking out. Therefore, in terms of sealing, the wooden box is still trustworthy. Once the pendant box is placed in the wooden box, the temptation is naturally isolated. This is like the mysterious man being locked up in a small dark room by Li Feng. As for the magic on the pendant box, of course it will also be locked up in a small dark room. The only trouble is that the pseudo-angel feather cannot be placed together with the pendant box. This thing is a killer for all creatures with twisted minds. Once the two are placed together, the soul in the pendant box will definitely be killed by the pseudo-angel feather. However, when the pseudo-angel feather leaves the wooden box, the energy on the feather will continue to dissipate, and eventually the pseudo-angel feather will become an ordinary goose feather. This is what Li Feng does not want to see. He also wants to use this feather to restrain creatures such as demons, so as to extort spells from the demons. Although Li Feng did not intend to get involved in Harry's plot, this did not prevent Li Feng from imagining a deal with Dumbledore. In exchange for handing over the locket, Dumbledore would teach him magic or a magic item he coveted, the time converter. After thinking for a long time, Li Feng was reluctant to save a locket that was not used much except for trading at the cost of consuming the energy of the pseudo-angel feather. After carefully wrapping the locket with a scroll and putting it in his pocket, Li Feng reached out to open the portal. At this time, Li Feng was very glad that Black chose to measure the distance from the Thames to Grimmauld Place with his feet, which gave Li Feng enough time to remember the environment along the way and facilitated himself to open the portal and leave the secret basement of the Black family. Li Feng, wearing a windbreaker and a long sword, suddenly stepped from the portal to the street, scaring the pedestrians around him. Then, Li Feng said to the pedestrians who looked confused, "I am a street magician. I hope my magic of changing people into living people did not scare you." After that, Li Feng bowed to apologize to the surroundings and left the crowd with a depressed face. Li Feng was depressed because he forgot to ask Black where Diagon Alley was. As a newcomer, he only knew that the Broken Axe Bar led to Diagon Alley, but he didn't even know where the Broken Axe Bar was. How could he get to Diagon Alley? With only wizard coins in his pocket, Li Feng squatted on the side of the road with an empty stomach. He opened his magic eye to check the spirits of passers-by from time to time, praying in his heart that a wizard with a special spirit would pass by him so that he could ask how to get to Diagon Alley. Until the sky was completely dark, Li Feng, who was still fantasizing about finding a wizard, suddenly saw a residual image flying past him. What the hell was that just passed? Startled, Li Feng stood up and looked at the residual image. When the residual image was about to disappear from his sight, he realized that it was a 3-decker bus. The night bus can only be seen by people with magic in their bodies. Knowing what he saw, Li Feng stretched out his hand with joy and opened the portal to the front and side of the bus. He couldn't help complaining in his heart. This is not the speed a bus should have. This is simply like a plane flying at low altitude. After crossing the portal, Li Feng waved to the speeding bus to stop. Unfortunately, the rule of the night bus is that he will only come when the wizard points his wand to the roadside. Where is Li Feng? Where can I find a magic wand? So the night bus just pretended not to see Li Feng and still whizzed past Li Feng. On the night bus, the driver seemed to glance at Li Feng, turned to the conductor and said, "I thought I saw someone waving to us just now." The conductor said nonchalantly, "Did you see the wand in his hand?" The driver, who saw Li Feng appearing again on the road ahead, shook his head and said, "I didn't see clearly. He didn't have a wand in his hand. He was behind us just now. Why did he suddenly run in front of us?" When Li Feng opened the portal to the front of the night bus for the fourth time and waved, the night bus finally stopped. Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief and watched the door open. The conductor with a diagonal hat leaned against the door and said curiously, "Sir, can you see the night bus?" "I can't see why I'm chasing after you." Cursing, Li Feng boarded the night bus and said, "The Broken Axe Bar is in London." Watching Li Feng boarding the bus, the conductor knew that he was a wizard, but he was very curious. He must know that the purpose of the bus is to open it for those who feel uncomfortable with flow fans or whose ability to apparate is unreliable. Yes, where is Li Feng? Since he can suddenly appear in front of the bus, it means that the other party has a way to teleport. Why should he take the night bus? After getting on the bus, Li Feng sat down on a free bed as quickly as possible. He knew that the seat where the conductor stood and the bed were protected by magic to prevent passengers from being thrown out of their seats when the high-speed bus braked suddenly, leaving the remaining passengers behind. There is no magic protection in corridors and other places. If Li Feng doesn't want to experience being tossed around and vomiting out his overnight meal, the best way is to sit quietly in his seat. Taking advantage of the fact that the bus was not starting, the conductor walked up to Li Feng and asked for the fare. Li Feng took out a gold galleon from his pocket and handed it to the conductor. The conductor frowned and said, "Sir, do you have any change?" Li Feng shook his head. All the gold galleons he had on him were taken from the Black family's small vault, whose gold inventory does not store gold galleons but instead stores small denomination coins such as silver sico or copper nut. Having said that, in order to ensure that he had enough money to buy various magic materials, Li Feng only had eyes for large denominations of gold galleons. Even if there were silver sico or copper nut, he would just ignore them. After all, his pocket was full of money. With such a small capacity, it takes a lot of brain power to load change. The conductor shrugged, took out the change from his pocket and paid Li Feng, turned around and returned to his seat. After telling the driver where Li Feng wanted to go, the conductor asked curiously, "Sir, where is your wand?" "I lost it." Li Feng looked out the window and said casually, "Why don't you go to Diagon Alley to buy another one?" "Sir, I have to remind you that the shops in Diagon Alley are closed now." The conductor, who obviously didn't believe Li Feng's nonsense, curled his lips and said, "I'm afraid you want to go to the Broken Axe Bar for a drink. As for the wand, your wife probably confiscated it to prevent you from using magic while drunk." Obviously, the conductor was a talkative person, but by the time the conductor asked Li Feng why he suddenly ran to the front of the bus, the night bus had already stopped at the entrance of the Broken Axe Bar. It was obvious that the night bus should really be renamed, and it was better to call it Night Airplane. Li Feng picked up his belongings, smiled and said to the conductor, who was still waiting for an explanation, "I'll tell you next time I take the night bus." After saying that, Li Feng got out of the car and pushed open the door of Broken Axe Bar. The door of the bar seemed to be just a simple wooden door, but the sound insulation effect was surprisingly good. As soon as he opened the door, Li Feng knew what it meant to be noisy and what business was booming. Inside the bar, the boss Tom glanced at the unfamiliar Li Feng and said, "Sir, what do you need?" "Food," Li Feng said without thinking. "There is also an empty room." Soon Tom placed the food in front of Li Feng and asked, "Sir, what is your name? I seem to have never seen you before." Li Feng, who was almost hungry, grabbed the food and took a bite, and said, "Austin, I came to London for a trip. Unfortunately, my luggage was stolen by muggles. I hope they won't mistake my wand for a symphony orchestra." The baton was stunned. I have been using it for many years. Putting down the food, Li Feng looked at Tom with innocent eyes and said, I can also buy a magic wand in London, right? Tom nodded, pointed to a door in the distance of the bar, and said, there is a passage to Diagon Alley there. When the shops in Diagon Alley start opening tomorrow, I will take you to open that door. You can go to Garrick Mr. Ollivander's wonderful wand. Li Feng smiled heartily. It's done, just wait until tomorrow to spend all the gold galleons in his pocket. Just when Li Feng had slipped into the soft quilt and fell asleep, Blake, who was waiting anxiously at home for the distinguished guest, finally heard someone ringing his doorbell. Blake opened the door excitedly and saw that in addition to the waiting distinguished guest, the headmaster of Hogwarts, Albert Dumbledore, there was also an unexpected old friend standing outside the door, Remus John Liu, flat. Black straightened his sharp hair that he had not yet had time to straighten, and said respectfully to the old man with a gray beard, Principal Dumbledore, nice to see you. After saying that, Blake wanted to move forward and hug his old friend. I didn't expect to see you here, moony face. Lupin took a step back with a sneer on his face to show that he did not want to hug Black. After all, in Lupin's impression, Black was still the murderer who killed Harry's family and Peter Pettigrew. If Dumbledore hadn't come to my residence when he received your message and invited me to become the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor at Hogwarts in the next semester, I really wouldn't have known that you had such great ability. Caban escaped, or is this the skill he taught you after you took refuge with the mysterious man? Blake's mouth twitched and he shouted like crazy, I didn't betray. I am no longer the headmaster. Dumbledore saw that the words between Lupin and Black were full of tension. He quickly interrupted the other party's words and signaled to Lupin that there was no need to be nervous. At the same time, he said doubtfully, when I received a letter signed by you, very surprised, weren't you in Azkaban? How did you escape? Not the principal. Black was stunned for a moment, and while gesturing for the two of them to enter the room, he frowned and asked, is it a conspiracy set up by the Death Eaters? I knew Austin had other plans, so he probably saved me. Coming out as part of the plan. Walking into Black's old house, Dumbledore shook his head slightly and said, it has nothing to do with the Death Eaters. It's a big event that happened in the school. Some students opened Slytherin's secret room and released monsters to clean up the Muggle-born students. There are already several of them. After being hurt, the school board decided to expel me to quell the incident. On the side, Lupin, who hid his wand in his hand and was always alert, said, let's talk about how you escaped from Azkaban. If you can't convince me, I think the Aurors will be happy to imprison you in Azkaban again. Caban, at the same time, I will also apply for permission from the Ministry of Magic to let the Dementors use the Dementor's Kiss on you. Not being able to feel the warm embrace of his old friend and hearing only sarcasm and murderous intent, Black seemed a little helpless. He understood that until Peter Pettigrew was found, nothing he could say could wash away the stain of murder. Hearing Lupin talk about Dementors, Black remembered the reason why he was looking for Dumbledore and said hurriedly, I saw with my own eyes a Chinese man named Austin subduing the Dementors in Azkaban. Now the Dementors still obey the orders of the Ministry of Magic on the surface, but in fact they have become Austin's slaves. With Black leading the way, the three of them walked into the room where the Black family tree was engraved. They pointed at the family tree and said, I was worried that Austin was a Death Eater, and I saw that he wanted to take me out of Azkaban, so he pretended agree to all his requests, and when he and I return to the old house, I will take the opportunity to imprison him in the secret basement and notify you to come. Quote. Dumbledore nodded slightly, indicating that he understood, and looked at the family tree on the wall with interest, and said, there is a magical magic on it. If you hadn't reminded me, I might not have noticed these things hidden on the wall. Is the magic a variant of the loyalty curse cast by Harry's parents when they protected their home? Dumbledore could see the secrets in the family tree at a glance, and Black was not surprised. After all, Dumbledore was the most powerful wizard in the wizarding world for hundreds of years. Blake smiled and said, only those whose names are written on the genealogy are qualified to use their own blood to open the door to the secret room hidden behind the wall. However, the shortcomings are also obvious. It only recognizes blood and not people. As long as someone gets it, with my blood, he can still open the secret basement of the Black family. In addition, the house elves and descendants who built the basement can also enter. Quote. Dumbledore turned his gaze from the family tree to Black and said, "Tell us about Austin." Blake lowered his head and thought for a while, then put his sentences together and said, "Austin suddenly appeared in Azkaban. From the beginning, he looked like a money man and looked for me in Azkaban to tell me that Pettigrew was hiding. He asked me to spend money to buy it because of the news, but it happened to be the Dementor feeding time when he found me, and my mind was in chaos at the time, so I didn't ask more about where Pettigrew was." Quote, "Originally when the Dementors came in, I thought he would escape alone. After all, no one wanted to get close to the Dementors." However, Black, with a slightly confused and frightened look in his eyes, continued, "At first, I only saw him perform one spell killed the Dementors on the spot, and the other spell gave the Dementors a Dementor's kiss. Finally, he forcibly cast a spell on all the Dementors in front of me, killing the Dementors. Become his pet." At the end, Black said with a little confusion and horror, "I found that his magic power is very small compared to adults, but he never uses a wand when casting spells, and some spells only require a few simple gestures, to silent casting. In the magic world, being able to cast spells silently is already a great thing, and being able to cast spells without a wand is even more outstanding in the magic world." Black was puzzled and confused by this. Lupin only thought that Black must have been sucked away by the Dementors so much happiness that he went crazy. Even the story he made up was full of holes. When did people with little magic power dare to face the Dementors, let alone kill them? Dementors, you must know that there is no record of being killed in the magic world. Dumbledore thought more and said, "Are you sure he told you about Peter Pettigrew?" Seeing Black nodding affirmatively, Dumbledore smiled and said, "Aside from Austin's conquest of the Dementors, there is also news about Pettigrew. Is this why you came to me for help? If these are true, then it means that we have all wronged you. After finding Pettigrew, I will apologize to you. Now it is better to open the basement entrance and let me have a good chat with this Austin." Quote, opening the entrance to the basement, Dumbledore was about to walk into the archway when Lupin at the side said, "Professor Dumbledore, let Black go first." Black looked at Lupin blankly and said with a self-deprecating look on his face, "You still don't believe me? Haven't you noticed that I don't even have a wand now? What's the difference between a wizard without a wand and a muggle? Now, with Dumbledore's strength, do you still need to be afraid of my trap? Do you look down on Dumbledore or do you think highly of me?" Quote, Lupin would not let his guard down just because Black didn't have a wand. He sneered and said, "Is this how you gained the trust of James and Lily in the first place? It's a pity that you sold them to the mysterious man in a blink of an eye. You have done so many evil things, and every time can you still sleep peacefully at night? Or is your conscience eaten by a dog? Oh, I'm sorry, your animagus is just a dog, and you may have become a wolf-hearted villain." Quote, Black panted rapidly, and finally after taking several deep breaths, he looked at Lupin with a calm expression. He shook his head to show his disappointment in his old friend, and at the same time turned around and walked into the arch, saying, "I should have died long ago if I were caught. Pettigrew, let me explain it to you." Dumbledore walked up to Lupin, put his right hand on Lupin's shoulder, and said, "Just because Black did not hide after escaping from Azkaban, but immediately contacted me to tell me about the Dementors, I believe that Black's the crime was framed." After saying that, Dumbledore followed Black into the basement. There was no trace of Li Feng in the basement at this time. Apart from the obviously messy footprints on the ground, only the equally messy small vault proved that someone had indeed been in the basement. Apart from that, the three people did not find even a cockroach in the basement. Lupin glanced around, looked at Black with a sarcastic face, and asked the other party to explain, "What does it mean that Austin is being held in the basement? Are you holding a ball of air named Austin?" Just when Lupin was about to make fun of Black's lie being discovered so quickly, Dumbledore walked to the compartment where the experimental table was placed, looked at the dust mark left on the experimental table when Li Feng took away the locket, and said, "The footprints on the ground do not match Blake's, so someone did come here just now, and Austin not only took the gold galleons, he also took something on the experimental table." As if thinking of something, Dumbledore squinted his eyes, pointed at Black's old house and said, "Mr. Black, you said you thought Austin had other motives for taking you out of Azkaban, so could he guess? Will you return here after you leave Azkaban?" Black walked to the experimental table, touched the experimental table and said, This is the only hiding place I can think of to escape the pursuit of the Ministry of Magic. Professor, are you saying that Austin's target is something on the experimental table? Dumbledore nodded slightly and said, if he really had other intentions, do you know what he took? Blake shook his head and said, I forgot how many years it has been since I came back to the old house. I don't know what else is left in the old house, but I want someone to know. After saying that, Black shouted loudly, Creature, come out. As soon as he finished speaking, Creature appeared in front of Black and said respectfully, What are your instructions, young master? I live to serve the Black family. After saying that, Creature lowered his head, as if there was no one around him. Said to himself, the dirty British man stepped on the dirty carpet again. Blair was already used to Creature's nervousness. He pointed at the experimental table and said, Tell me what was originally on the experimental table. Original. Creature realized something, jumped to the experimental table in a panic, looked at it, and cried, Thief, Creature hasn't destroyed it yet, and he has failed his master. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.